Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto awakened the Morphin god power, becoming the Sag. E of all Rangers Naruto x Kimberly and Hart x Kira Ford x Karone x Jen Scots x Gia Moran Power Rangers. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Dimensional Rift. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Valley of the End, illuminating the ancient statues O. F. Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju in a golden glow. 19-year-old Naruto Uzumaki stood atop Hashirama's stone head, his white Hokage in training cloak fluttering in the autumn breeze. 3 years had passed since the Fourth Great Ninja War, and the world had settled into an uneasy peace, the kind that made Naruto's skin prickle with anticipation rather than comfort. "There it is again," he muttered, cerulean eyes narrowing as faint pulses of unfamiliar energy rippled through the air. Neither chakra nor natural energy, this strange phenomenon had been occurring with increasing frequency over the past week. Kakashi-sensei, now Hokage, had dispatched him to investigate after sensors in Konoha detected the anomalies. Naruto closed his eyes, entering sage mode with a single, calming breath. The familiar sensation of natural energy flowing through his pathways centered him as orange pigmentation formed around his eyes. When he opened them again, the world appeared in sharper detail, RGY signatures visible as distinct patterns, but the mysterious pulses remained elusive, somehow both present and absent simultaneously. "Whatever you are," he said to the empty air, "you can't hide from me forever." His enhanced senses detected the disturbance before it manifested. A subtle warping of reality near the waterfall where he had once fought Sasuke. The air seemed to fold in on itself, creating a ripple effect that distorted the landscape. Naruto leapt from the statue, channeling chakra to his feet as he raced across the vertical cliff face. The distortion expanded with alarming speed, crackling with energy that felt both foreign and oddly familiar. A high-pitched whine filled the air as the fabric of space tore open, revealing a swirling vortex of purple, gold, and blue light. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Naruto formed the cross-shaped hand seal, and 20 perfect copies of himself appeared in puffs of smoke. They spread out in a defensive formation, kunai drawn and ready. The original Naruto approached the anomaly cautiously, watching as it pulsed and expanded. "I should probably wait for backup," he mused, even as he took another step forward. "But when have I ever done the sensible thing?" One shadow clone threw a marked kunai through the portal to test it. The blade disappeared into the light with no discernible effect. Naruto formed a Rasengan in his right palm, its blue light reflecting off the swirling vortex before him. He activated his communicator. "This is Naruto at the Valley of the End. I've found the source of the disturbance. It appears to be some kind of..." The vortex pulsed violently, expanding outward in a blinding flash. Naruto felt an overwhelming pull as the portal's energy latched onto his chakra like a living thing. His shadow CL-1s dispelled in rapid succession as they were dragged toward the light. "Not good," he shouted, driving his Rasengan into the ground to anchor himself. The earth cracked beneath the spiraling sphere, but the portal's pull only intensified. It wasn't just drawing him physically. Naruto could feel it tugging at his chakra, at the very energy that comprised his being. With a final, desperate effort, he channeled Nine Tails chakra. His skin glowing with golden light as 6 paths of sage chakra manifested around him. The fox's energy battled against the portal's pull. For a moment, it seemed he might break free. Then the vortex flashed again, responding to his increased power output by pulling even harder. The last thing Naruto saw was the valley's massive statues diminishing in the distance. As he was yanked backward into swirling light and absolute silence. Consciousness returned in violent bursts. First came sound, a distant rumble of traffic unlike anything in Konoha. Then smell, asphalt, exhaust, and the artificial scent of manicured grass. Finally, pain, a throbbing ache that permeated every cell in his body. Naruto opened his eyes to an alien sky, still blue, but somehow different. He lay in a crater of his own making in what appeared to be a public park. Unfamiliar trees surrounded him, and strange metal constructions stood where children might play. Nothing made sense. From the architecture of distant buildings to the very feel of the air against his skin. "Where the hell am I?" he groaned, pushing himself to his feet. His chakra felt strange, present but somehow altered, as if it were interacting with an unfamiliar energy field. He performed a quick diagnostic jutsu Sakura had taught him, confirming no serious injuries despite his rough arrival. A quick serve. Why of his surroundings revealed no immediate threats, but something felt fundamentally wrong. The natural energy here flowed differently, and when he attempted to enter sage mode, the sensation was disorienting, like trying to swim in a current moving in multiple directions simultaneously. The distant wail of sirens drew his attention. Moving with ninja stealth, Naruto leapt into a nearby tree, concealing himself among the leaves as several white and black vehicles with flashing lights pulled up to the edge of the park. Men and women in matching dark uniforms emerged, approaching his impact crater with weapons drawn. "Police," he whispered, recognizing the concept if not the specific implementation. This confirmed his suspicion. He was no longer in the 5 great nations. The portal had sent him somewhere else entirely. Naruto created a single shadow clone, sending it to gather information while he retreated to higher ground. From the top of the tallest building he could find a straw NGE glass and steel structure unlike anything in Konoha. He surveyed his surroundings. A sprawling city extended in all directions, with vehicles moving along organized pathways and people going about their business below. Signs in an unfamiliar language adorned many buildings, though he was surprised to find he could somehow understand some of them. "Angel Grove," he read from a particularly large billboard. What kind of name is that? His clone's memories suddenly flooded back as it dispelled itself. It had overheard the authorities discussing an unidentified meteor impact and potential extraterrestrial activity. They were establishing a perimeter and calling in special consultants. "They think I'm an alien," Naruto muttered, almost laughing despite the gravity of his situation. "I guess that's not entirely wrong." A flicker of movement caught his attention. Someone else was navigating the rooftops with practiced ease. Not with chakra-enhanced jumps like a ninja, but with impressive athleticism nonetheless. Curious, Naruto followed at a distance. The figure, female, he now saw, moved with precision and grace, using gymnastic techniques to cross gaps between buildings. She wore simple workout clothes, black leggings and a pink tank top, with brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. Despite her civilian appearance, something about her movements suggested combat training. Shish. He stopped at the edge of a building overlooking the park where Naruto had landed, pulling out a small device and pointing it toward the crater. Whatever she saw caused her to stiffen in surprise. Naruto decided to make his presence known. He dropped down silently behind her, maintaining enough distance to avoid appearing threatening. "Those readings aren't going to make much sense," he said casually. The woman spun around with impressive speed, dropping into a fighting stance that Naruto recognized as a civilian martial art. Her eyes, a determined brown, widened at his appearance, taking in his distinctive whisker marks, headband, and battle-worn clothing. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady despite her obvious surprise. "Are you responsible for that energy signature?" Naruto raised his hands in a universal gesture of peace. "Name's Naruto Uzumaki. And yeah, that was me, though not intentionally. I got pulled through some kind of portal." She didn't relax her stance. "Another dimensional traveler. Great. Just what Angel Grove needs." Her sarcasm was thick, but Naruto detected genuine concern beneath it. "I'm guessing you're not from around here." "You could say that." Naruto lowered his hands slowly. "I'm from a place called Konoha, in the land of fire." "Something tells me that doesn't exist in your world." The woman studied him for a long moment before straightening up, though she remained clearly ready to defend herself. "I'm Kimberly Hart. And no, I've never heard of Konoha or the land of fire." She gestured to the device in her hand. "These readings are similar to Morphin grid fluctuations. But there's something else mixed in. Something I've never seen before." "Morphin grid," Naruto repeated, the term unfamiliar yet somehow resonant. "I don't know what that is. But what you're detecting is probably my chakra." "Chakra," Kimberly echoed, her expression thoughtful. "Like the energy centers in the body. Eastern mysticism stuff." Naruto rubbed the back of his head. "Sort of. but more literal where I come from. It's the energy that powers our jutsu, our techniques. To demonstrate, he created a small Rasengan in his palm, the spiraling blue orb casting light across his features. Kimberly's device immediately beeped rapidly, and she stared at the energy sphere with a mixture of wariness and fascination. That's definitely not Morphin energy, but it's interacting with the grid somehow. She looked up at him with newfound intensity. Who exactly are you, Naruto Uzumaki? Before he could answer, the building beneath them trembled. Both warriors instinctively steadied themselves as a second tremor, stronger than the first, shook the structure. That's not normal, is it? Naruto asked, already knowing the answer. Kimberly shook her head, moving to the building's edge. No, and it's happening right where you landed. In the park below, the ground around Naruto's impact crater was fracturing, releasing pulses of purple energy. T matched the portal that had brought him here. As they watched, the fissures widened, and strange creatures began climbing out, humanoid figures with rocky, gray skin and glowing purple veins. Those aren't putties, Kimberly said, her voice tight, but they're definitely not friendly. Naruto narrowed his eyes. They're not ninja constructs either, but they feel corrupted somehow. Like they remade from both the energy of your world and mine. The creatures, 15 of them now, began moving toward the police perimeter with jerky, unnatural movements. One officer fired a warning shot, which seemed to agitate the creatures. They charged forward with unexpected speed. Those officers don't stand a chance, Kimberly said, already moving toward the fire escape. I need to. I've got this, Naruto interrupted, forming his signature hand sign. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. 20 perfect copies of Naruto appeared on the rooftop, each as solid and capable as the original. Kimberly stung, bled back in shock as the clones leapt from the building, racing toward the unfolding chaos below. How did you? She began, but Naruto was already moving. Explanations later, he called over his shoulder. Right now, those people need help. He paused at the edge of the roof, glancing back at her. Are you coming? You seem like someone who knows how to handle herself in a fight. A complex expression crossed Kimberly's face, hesitation mixed with resolve. I haven't done this in a long time, she murmured, almost to herself. Then, with newfound determination, but I guess it's like riding a bike. She followed him down, moving with practiced efficiency. Whatever her story was, Naruto thought, she was definitely no ordinary civilian. The creatures moved with unnatural coordination, their strength evident as one flipped a police car with disturbing ease. Officers fired their weapons to little effect. The bullets seemed to pass through the creatures' bodies, leaving temporary holes that sealed themselves immediately. Naruto's shadow clones reached the scene first, forming a protective barrier between the creatures and the retreating police officers. The original Naruto landed beside them, quickly assessing the situation. Get the civilians out of here, he ordered one group of clones, who immediately began helping the police establish a wider perimeter and evacuate the area. Kimberly landed nearby with impressive agility for someone without chakra enhancement. They're not like anything I've seen before, she said, studying the creatures. Not putties, not Tengu warriors, not Quantrans. Whatever they are, they bleed, Naruto replied, noticing the purple fluid seeping from a wound one of his clones had managed to inflict. If they bleed, we can beat them. The creatures noticed their presence and changed direction, moving toward them with single-minded purpose. Their movements became more fluid, more dangerous. They're adapting, Kimberly observed, learning from what they see. One creature lunged at her with unexpected speed. Kimberly reacted instantly, years of training evident in her precise movements. She sidestepped the attack, using the creature's momentum against it with a textbook throw that sent it crashing into two of its companions. Not bad, Naruto acknowledged, genuinely impressed by her technique. He ducked under another creature's swing, countering with a chakra-enhanced punch that sent it flying back into the crater. Former soldier, Kimberly executed a perfect spinning kick that connected with a creature's head. Something like that, she replied cryptically. Working together, they established a rhythm. Kimberly's technical precision complemented Naruto's raw power and unpredictability. His shadow clones provided numerical advantage. while her experience fighting similar enemies offered tactical insights. They're getting stronger, Naruto observed after several minutes of combat. Each time they defeated one of the creatures, it would reform. Slightly more resilient than before. And they're specifically targeting me. This was true. The creatures seemed drawn to Naruto's chakra, often ignoring easier targets to reach him. One grabbed his arm, and Naruto felt a strange draining sensation as his chakra was literally pulled from his body. They're feeding on your energy, Kimberly called out, noticing his momentary weakness. She executed a flawless series of strikes that forced the creature to release him. We need to shut down their power source. Naruto nodded, creating more shadow clones to provide cover as he concentrated. The source is the crater. They're still connected to whatever brought me here. He closed his eyes, focusing on the natural energy around him. Despite the strange differences in this world, he could still access Sage Mode, even if it felt distorted. The familiar orange pigmentation formed around his eyes as he entered Sage Mode. With his enhanced perception, he could see energy flows that were invisible before, threads of purple and gold connecting the creatures to the crater, which itself pulsed with dimensional energy. I can see it now, he said, opening his eyes. There's still an active connection to my world. That's what's powering them. Kimberly fought her way to his side, breathing heavily but showing no signs of giving up. Can you close it? I think so, but I'll need time to prepare the sealing technique. Naruto glanced at her. Can you keep them busy? Kimberly hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out what looked like an ancient coin with a pterodactyl engraved on it. I was hoping to avoid this, she muttered. She closed her eyes briefly, seeming to come to an internal decision. It's Morphin time. Naruto felt a surge of unfamiliar energy, powerful, ancient, and somehow alive. Light enveloped Kimberly, and when it faded, she stood transformed. Pink armor covered her body, complete with a helmet that concealed her face. The suit seemed to enhance her already impressive physical abilities as she launched herself at the creatures with renewed vigor. Okay, that's new, Naruto said, momentarily distracted by her transformation. The energy she now emanated was similar to what his Sage Mode was detecting from the dimensional rift, connected to this Morphin grid she had mentioned. One of his clones snapped him back to focus. Boss, we don't have much time. These things are getting stronger with every minute. Naruto nodded, forming a series of complex hand signs. I need you all to channel chakra into me. I'm going to try to seal the rift using the 5-element seal, modified with natural energy. His clones formed a protective circle around him, each placing a hand on his shoulder as they transferred their chakra. In the background, Kimberly, or whatever she called herself in that form, was a pink blur of motion, keeping the creatures at bay with a combination of enhanced martial arts and energy weapons that materialized in her hands. The seal was complex, requiring precise chakra control. Under normal circumstances, Naruto would have preferred having Sakura or Kakashi assist with something this delicate. But they were in another dimension. He had to rely on his own skills that had grown considerably in the years since the war. Almost there, he muttered, feeling the seal take shape. The modified 5-element seal would temporarily close the dimensional tear, preventing more creatures from emerging and cutting off the power source for those already here. A sudden cry of pain caught his attention. Kimberly had been caught by 3 creatures simultaneously, her armor sparking as they attempted to drain her energy as well. Despite her enhanced abilities, she was outnumbered and losing ground. Hold the seal, Naruto instructed his clones. Breaking from their circle, he charged forward, entering Nine-Tails chakra mode in a flash of golden light. The familiar sensation of Kurama's power surging through him was reassuring in this alien world. He moved with blinding speed, appearing beside Kimberly in an instant. His chakra arms extended, pulling the creatures away from her and tossing them aside like rag dolls. Thanks, she said, her voice slightly distorted through her helmet. She stared at his transformed state with visible surprise. What are you? Just a ninja who's very far from home. Naruto replied with a grin. The seal's almost ready. When I give the signal, get clear of the crater. Kimberly nodded, raising what appeared to be a bow formed of pink energy. I'll cover you. Naruto returned to his clones, who had maintained the seal's formation in his absence. With Kurama's chakra now added to the mix, the sealing technique solidified rapidly. He could feel the dimensional energy responding, the rift beginning to close under the pressure of his chakra. Now, he shouted. Kimberly fired a volley of energy arrows that scattered the remaining creatures, creating a momentary opening. Naruto slammed his palm into the ground, channeling the completed seal directly into the dimensional tier. 5-element seal. Dimensional closure. The ground shook violently as the seal expanded outward in glowing patterns. The creatures screeched in what sounded like pain as their connection to the power source was severed. One by one, they collapsed into piles of inert stone, the purple energy that animated them dissipating into the air. The crater itself seemed to implode, the dimensional energy folding in on itself until nothing remained but scorched earth. Naruto fell to one knee, exhausted from the complex technique. His shadow clones dispelled in puffs of smoke, their remaining chakra returning to him. Kimberly approached cautiously, her transformation fading in a flash of pink light until she stood before him in her civilian clothes once more. "That was impressive," she said, offering him a hand up. "I've never seen anyone manipulate energy quite like that." Naruto accepted her help, rising to his feet with a tired smile. "I could say the same about you. That armor was something else." Their moment of mutual appreciation was interrupted by the sound of approaching vehicles, different from the police cars, heavier and more purposeful. Kimberly tensed. "That's probably NASA or some other government agency," she said. "They monitor for extraterrestrial and dimensional activity. They're not necessarily enemies, but they might have a lot of uncomfortable questions for a guy who just fell out of the sky." Naruto finished her thought. "I don't suppose you know somewhere we can go while I figure out how to get home?" Kimberly studied him for a long moment, clearly weighing her options. Finally, she nodded. "I think I know someone who might be able to help us understand what's happening. An old mentor of mine. He's been researching the power you saw me use." "Lead the way," Naruto said, following as she moved away from the approaching vehicles. "I have a feeling this is just the beginning of whatever's happening between our worlds." As they disappeared into the city, neither noticed the small fragment of purple crystal that remained in the sealed crater, pulsing with diminished but persistent energy. Nor did they see the shadowy figure watching from a nearby rooftop, a figure W. Ho had observed the entire confrontation with great interest. "The prophecy begins," the figure whispered, its voice neither male nor female, but something in between. "The Sage of Rangers has arrived. Kimberly led Naruto through the back streets of Angel Grove with the confidence of someone who had spent years memorizing every possible escape route. Their journey took them away from the commercial district toward a quieter residential area with tree-lined streets and modest homes. "So, those creatures," Naruto began as they walked, keeping his voice low. "You've fought things like them before." "Similar, but not the same," Kimberly replied, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. "In my previous life, I fought a lot of monsters. Usually they were sent by specific enemies with clear motives. Those things felt different, wild, uncontrolled. Like they were caught between worlds," Naruto suggested. "Not fully formed." Kimberly nodded. "Exactly. Which is why we need expert help." She paused at a corner, checking for pursuit before continuing. "The person we're going to see, his name is Billy Cranston. He was a teammate back in the day. He's devoted his life to studying the power source that allowed us to transform. The Morphin grid," Naruto recalled. "Is that what gave you the pink armor?" A small smile touched Kimberly's lips. "Yes, I was the pink Anger, part of a team called the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers." She said the name with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. "We defended Earth from various threats for years." "Power Rangers," Naruto repeated, the term stirring something in his memory. "When I was in Sage mode, I could see the energy from your transformation interacting with the dimensional rift. There's some connection between your Morphin grid and my world's chakra network." "That's what I'm afraid of," Kimberly said grimly. "If the barriers between dimensions are breaking down, we could be facing something bigger than either of us has dealt with before." They arrived at a modest blue house set back from the street, with a detached garage that had been converted into what looked like a workshop. Solar panels covered the roof, and various satellite dishes and antennas protruded from unexpected places. Billy's always been the tech genius of our group, Kimberly explained as she led Naruto up the driveway. After we retired, he focused on research. He's probably the foremost expert on the Morphin grid outside of. She trailed off, an old pain briefly visible in her eyes. Outside of who? Naruto asked gently. Our mentor, she said simply. He's no longer with us. Before Naruto could respond, the garage door opened, revealing a man in his late 30s with glasses and a thoughtful expression. He wore a blue button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his workspace behind him was filled with computers and equipment that Naruto couldn't begin to identify. The man, Billy, presumably, looked surprised. My security system alerted me to your approach, but I wasn't expecting. His eyes landed on Naruto, widening slightly at the sight of his distinctive appearance. I see you've brought a visitor from the dimensional disturbance. Kimberly blinked. You already know. Billy gestured them inside, closing the door behind them. My equipment detected the rift opening approximately 43 minutes ago. I've been monitoring the situation remotely. He extended a hand to Naruto. Dr. William Cranston, former Blue Ranger and current independent researcher into interdimensional physics and Morphin grid theory. Quote, Naruto shook his hand, feeling an immediate sense of trustworthiness from the man. Naruto Uzumaki, ninja from Konoha and apparently interdimensional traveler. Fascinating, Billy said, already moving to his computers. Your arrival coincides with some very unusual Morphin grid fluctuations I've been tracking for the past week. The energy signature you emanate is unlike anything in my database. That would be chakra, Naruto explained. It's the energy system ninjas use in my world. Billy's fingers flew across his keyboard, bringing up complex diagrams on multiple screens. Chakra, interesting. In our world, chakra is considered a somewhat metaphysical concept, energy centers within the body that most consider spiritual rather than literal. He glanced at Naruto. But I'm guessing in your world, it's quite tangible. Very, Naruto confirmed. Every living thing has chakra, and ninjas train to manipulate it for various techniques. To demonstrate, he created a small Rasengan in his palm again. Billy's equipment immediately beeped and whirred, sensors automatically tracking the energy manifestation. Extraordinary, Billy murmured, adjusting his glasses. The energy pattern shares certain fundamental frequencies with the Morphin grid, but the structure is entirely different. He looked up at Naruto with renewed interest. May I ask how you came to be in our dimension? Naruto explained about the energy anomalies he'd been sent to investigate, the portal that had opened, and his inability to resist its pull. As he spoke, Billy took notes and occasionally asked clarifying questions about specific sensations or visual details. And then we fought those strange creatures, Kimberly added, which seemed to be feeding on both Naruto's chakra and the Morphin grid. Billy frowned, his expression growing more serious. That's consistent with my theories. The barriers between dimensions have been weakening for months. I've detected similar fluctuations across multiple locations globally. He pulled up a world map on one of his screens, showing glowing dots at various points. Angel Grove is just the first place where a full breach occurred. Likely because of its history as a focal point for Morphin energy. Can you send me back? Naruto asked the question that had been foremost in his mind since arriving. Billy's hesitation was answer enough. Not immediately, he admitted. Creating stable interdimensional portals requires enormous energy and precise calculations. Without knowing the exact dimensional coordinates of your world, I'm stuck here, Naruto finished, a weight settling in his chest. Thoughts of his friends, Sakura, Sai, Kakashi, and all the others, flashed through his mind. Were they looking for him? Did time even flow the same way between dimensions? Not necessarily stuck, Billy corrected. Just temporarily delayed. With more data and the right equipment, I believe I could eventually establish a connection to your world. How long? Naruto's voice was quiet but firm. Billy met his gaze directly. Weeks, possibly months, and that's assuming we can gather sufficient data about your home dimension. Naruto absorbed this information silently. He had faced impossible odds before. Pain, loss, world-ending threats, and had never given up. This was just another challenge to overcome. Then we'll gather the data you need, he said with renewed determination. Starting with those creatures we fought. They seemed connected to both worlds somehow. Kimberly, who had been unusually quiet during this exchange, spoke up. Billy, there's something else. When Naruto entered some kind of enhanced state. Sage mode, Naruto supplied. Right, Sage mode. He said he could see connections between the Morphin grid and his chakra network. And when I morphed to fight those creatures, he seemed to resonate with the grid somehow. Billy's expression shifted to one of intense curiosity. Resonate? How? Naruto considered this. It was like recognition. Like my chakra was responding to your energy, trying to synchronize with it. He looked down at his hands, remembering the strange sensation. For a moment, I could almost feel the same power Kimberly was using, as if it were an extension of my own abilities. Billy set down his tablet, a new urgency in his movements. I need to show you something. He moved to a secured cabinet at the back of his workshop, entering a complex code to unlock it. From within, he retrieved an ancient-looking scroll encased in a protective container. After Zordon's sacrifice, I devoted myself to collecting and preserving Ranger history and lore, he explained, carefully opening the container. This scroll was recovered from the ruins of the command center years ago. Most of it is written in a language even I haven't been able to fully translate, but certain passages became legible after the legendary battle, when all Ranger powers temporarily united. He unrolled the scroll carefully on a clean workbench, revealing text in an unfamiliar script interspersed with detailed illustrations. One image in particular caught Naruto's attention. A humanoid figure surrounded by 6 distinct energy types, with what appeared to be a spiral pattern over their stomach. That looks like a Jinchuriki seal, Naruto said, pointing to the spiral. It's similar to the seal that contained Kurama, the 9-tailed fox, within me. Billy and Kimberly exchanged significant looks. The partial translation I've managed refers to a figure called the Sage of Rangers. Billy said carefully, a being from beyond the grid who would unite all Ranger powers when the dimensions began to falter. Someone who could channel both their native energy and the Morphin grid simultaneously. Quote, the scroll describes this person as bearing the mark of a great beast, Kimberly added, and possessing the ability to create duplicates of themselves. Naruto's hand unconsciously moved to his stomach, where the seal containing Kurama had once been most visible. Though their relationship had evolved beyond the original sealing, the connection remained. That could describe any number of people, he argued, uncomfortable with the implication. And prophecies are rarely as straightforward as they seem. True, Billy acknowledged, but the timing of your arrival, your ability to sense the Morphin grid despite being from another dimension, and your apparent resonance with Ranger energy, it's statistically improbable that these are mere coincidences. Naruto had never been one for destiny or fate. He had spent his life defying expectations and making his own path. Yet he couldn't deny the strange connection he felt to this world and its energy. Even if this prophecy is about me, he said slowly, what does it mean? What am I supposed to do? The scroll mentions a great convergence, Billy replied, pointing to another section of text. A time when all dimensions touch. When the barriers between worlds grow thin. It speaks of a shadow that feeds on this convergence, growing stronger as reality fractures. Those creatures we fought could be just the beginning. Kimberly said grimly, if the dimensional barriers continue to weaken, more will come through, Naruto finished. And possibly worse than what we've seen so far. A heavy silence fell over the workshop as the implications sank in. Naruto's mind raced with possibilities, with questions and concerns. He thought of his friends back home, potentially facing similar incursions from this dimension. He thought of the people here, unprepared for the kinds of threats ninjas dealt with regularly. And he thought of the strange connection he'd felt to the Morphin grid. A power both foreign and somehow familiar. I need to contact the others, Kimberly said finally, breaking the silence. If this is as serious as it seems, we'll need all the help we can get. Others? Naruto asked. Other Rangers, she clarified. From different teams, different eras. If the prophecy speaks of uniting Ranger powers, we should gather those who've wielded them. Billy nodded in agreement. I can use my communications network to reach most of the teams. Tommy should be our first call. He's had more experience with different Ranger powers than anyone. And I should try to learn more about this Morphin grid, Naruto added. If it's going to help me get home, and help us fight whatever's coming, I need to understand how it works, how it connects to chakra. I can help with that, Billy offered. My equipment can analyze your energy signature while you attempt to access the grid. With your permission, of course. Naruto nodded, then paused as a new thought occurred to him. Wait, those creatures found me because of my chakra signature. If there are more out there, they could track you here, Kimberly realized, immediately moving toward the windows to check outside. My workshop is shielded against most forms of energy detection, Billy assured them, but you're right to be concerned. We should move to a more secure location before conducting any experiments. I know just the place, Kimberly said, but we'll need transportation. My car isn't exactly inconspicuous, and we don't know who might be watching after what happened at the park. Billy S. Me led for the first time since they'd arrived, pressing a button on a remote control. A section of his workshop floor slid away, revealing a hidden vehicle bay below. Within it sat a modified blue SUV, with tinted windows and what appeared to be reinforced exterior panels. I've made some improvements to my transportation over the years, he explained with a hint of pride. Fully shielded against energy detection, bulletproof exterior, and a few other features that might come in handy. Naruto couldn't help but grin. You know, you remind me of a friend back home. She's always prepared for everything too. As Billy gathered essential equipment and Kimberly made some calls on a secure line, Naruto took a moment to center himself. He closed his eyes, reaching inward to the place where Kurama's consciousness had once resided. Though the fox was no longer sealed within him in the same way, their chakras remained permanently intertwined. What do you make of all this, Kurama? He thought, not really expecting an answer. To his surprise, he felt a stirring of familiar energy, distant but present. Whatever had happened during the dimensional transfer, his connection to the Nine Tails remained intact. If somewhat attenuated by the vast distance between worlds. Be careful, Naruto, came Kurama's faint reply. This world's energy, it's ancient, powerful, different from chakra, but not entirely unlike the Six Paths power. Watch yourself. Naruto opened his eyes, a renewed sense of determination filling him. Whatever challenges this new world presented, whatever prophecy might or might not involve him, he would face it as he always had, with unwavering resolve and the will to protect those around him. I'm ready, he told Kimberly and Billy as they completed their preparations. Let's find out what this sage of Rangers business is really about. As they loaded into Billy's vehicle and prepared to depart, none of them noticed the small, crystalline fragment that had ached itself to Naruto's jacket during the fight, a shard of the same purple material that had comprised the creatures. It pulsed weakly, almost imperceptibly, as if transmitting a signal to some distant receiver. The hunt had begun. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Legacy of the Sage. The pre-dawn sky painted Reefside's outskirts in muted blues and purples as Billy's modified SUV wound its way up a secluded mountain road. Naruto watched the unfamiliar landscape through tinted windows, struck by both the similarities and differences between this world and his own. The forests were similar enough, trees reaching skyward, wildlife occasionally visible in the underbrush, but the very energy of the place felt fundamentally different. We're almost there, Kimberly said from the passenger seat, breaking the contemplative silence that had settled over them during the 3-hour drive from Angel Grove. Tommy's place is just around this bend. Tommy Oliver, Naruto repeated, testing the name. During their journey, Billy and Kimberly had shared stories about their former teammate, a man who had apparently wielded more variations of ranger power than anyone in history. The one you called the living legend. Billy smiled slightly as he navigated a sharp turn. Tommy would hate hearing that title, but it's accurate. He's experienced more of the Morphin grid's capabilities than any other ranger. If anyone can help us understand your connection to it, it's him. The SUV emerged from the tree line, revealing a modern house built into the hillside. Large windows faced the valley below, and a modified Jeep sat in the driveway beside a black SUV. The property was isolated, defensible, chosen with both privacy and security in mind. Nice place, Naruto commented as they pulled up beside the other vehicles. Reminds me of the Hokage retreat in the mountains outside Konoha. Billy parked and began unloading essential equipment while Kimberly led the way to the front door. Before she could knock, it swung open to reveal a man in his late 30s with short, spiky hair and alert eyes that immediately assessed Naruto with military precision. "Kim," he greeted warmly, embracing her i.e. fly before turning to Billy with a firm handshake. His gaze returned to Naruto, curious but cautious. "And you must be our interdimensional visitor. Naruto Uzumaki," he introduced himself with a slight bow, a habit from home that felt appropriate in this moment of formal introduction. "Thanks for agreeing to help us, especially on such short notice." Tommy's expression softened slightly. "Any friend of Kim and Billy's is welcome here. Besides, dimensional incursions tend to require immediate attention in our experience." He stepped aside, gesturing them in. "Come on, I've got coffee brewing, and there's someone else you should meet." The interior of Tommy's home was spacious and surprisingly warm, not what Naruto had expected from a legendary warrior. Training certificates and paleontology degrees hung on the walls alongside photos of Tommy with various groups of people, presumably other ranger teams. They followed him to an open kitchen area where a woman with shoulder-length blonde hair sat nursing a mug of coffee. She looked up as they entered, her sharp eyes immediately finding Naruto. "So this is him," she said, standing to greet them. "The ninja from another dimension. Naruto, this is Catherine Hillard." Tommy introduced her, "Former Pink and Zeo Ranger, and my wife. Call me Cat," she said with an Australian accent, offering her hand. Tommy filled me in on what Billy shared over the phone. Something about ancient prophecies and dimensional rifts. "That's the simplified version," Billy confirmed, setting up a portable scanner on the kitchen counter. Quote, "The complete analysis is significantly more concerning." While Billy began explaining the technical details of the dimensional breach, Tommy poured coffee for everyone. Naruto accepted a mug gratefully. Having developed a taste for the bitter drink during late-night mission planning sessions with Kakashi. "So you're a ninja," Tommy said, studying Naruto with renewed interest. "With actual physical manifestations of energy manipulation abilities." Naruto nodded. "Where I come from, many people can use chakra for various techniques, but ninjas specialize in it, for combat, espionage, even healing. And you can create physical duplicates of yourself," Tommy continued. Billy mentioned something about shadow clones. In response, Naruto formed a single hand sign. With a puff of smoke, an exact copy of himself appeared beside him, grinning and waving at the startled rangers. "That's remarkable," Kat said, eyes wide. "The energy readings on Billy's equipment just spiked, but it's nothing like when we morph." "The shadow clone isn't just an illusion," Naruto explained as his duplicate picked up a spare mug to demonstrate its physicality. "It's a complete copy with its own consciousness. Whatever it experiences, I'll remember when it dispels." "Tactically advantageous," Tommy observed. "Both for reconnaissance and combat situations." The conversation paused as Billy's equipment beeped urgently. He frowned at the readings, adjusting several settings before looking up with concern. "The crystal fragment we found on your jacket is emitting a signal," he told Naruto. "It's faint, but it's definitely attempting to transmit data to something, or someone." Naruto's clone immediately disappeared in a puff of smoke as the original focused on this new information. "Can you block it?" "Already done," Billy assured him, "but the fact that it was designed to track you suggests a level of intentionality behind what's happening. The dimensional rift might not have been an accident." This revelation hung heavily in the room. Naruto had been operating under the assumption that he'd been pulled through randomly, caught in some natural dimensional phenomenon. The idea that something had deliberately targeted him was troubling. That would align with the prophecy, Kimberly pointed out. If Naruto really is this sage of rangers the scroll mentioned, then something wanted him here, Tommy finished, his expression darkening, which means we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. He turned to Naruto. "You mentioned a sage mode that allowed you to perceive the Morphin grid. Can you show us?" Naruto nodded, setting down his coffee and moving to an open area of the living room. "I'll need a minute to gather natural energy. It works differently here Han, in my world, the flow patterns aren't what I'm used to." He sat cross-legged on the floor, closing his eyes and entering the meditative state required to balance physical and spiritual energy with the natural energy around him. In his world, this process had become almost instantaneous with practice, but here he needed to recalibrate his senses to the unfamiliar patterns. Gradually, he felt the energy respond to his call, flowing into him in strange, spiraling currents unlike anything he'd experienced before. It was like learning Sage Mode all over again, but with a foundation of experience that made the adjustment possible. When he opened his eyes, he knew from the Ranger's expressions that the transformation had manifested visibly. Orange pigmentation around his eyes, his pupils NS for med to horizontal bars like a toad's. Fascinating, Billy murmured, his scanner recording everything. The energy signature has elements of both your chakra and something that resembles the Morphin grid. But it's neither one entirely. It feels different, Naruto confirmed, standing smoothly. In this state, his perception extended beyond normal limits, allowing him to see energy flows throughout the house and beyond. Your world's natural energy is more structured than mine. Like it follows predetermined pathways. The Morphin grid, Tommy suggested. It permeates everything, but follows specific patterns, what we call the morphological structure of reality. Naruto walked slowly around the room, his enhanced senses detecting something beneath them. There's a concentrated source of this energy below us. A hidden room. Tommy and Kat exchanged surprised glances. He can sense the command center, Kat said quietly. No technology detected it, but he can feel it. Tommy nodded, making a decision. If the prophecy is real, then hiding things will only waste time we don't have. He moved to a model dinosaur on a nearby shelf, tilting its head to reveal a hidden switch. A section of the floor began to retract, revealing a stairway leading downward. Welcome to the Dino Thunder Command Center, he said, gesturing for Naruto to follow. It's not operational as a ranger base anymore, but I've maintained the equipment for research purposes. They descended into a high-tech facility that reminded Naruto somewhat of Orochimaru's laboratories, though far less sinister. Computer terminals lined the walls, and display cases contained various artifacts and what appeared to be different versions of the armor Kimberly had worn during their fight. This is where I mentored the Dino Thunder team years ago, Tommy explained, activating the main computer system. I've since converted it to a research facility focused on Ranger history and the Morphin grid. You were a mentor? Naruto asked, surprised. Not just a Ranger yourself. Both, actually, Tommy replied with a small smile. I've worn more colors than I care to count over the years. When you've been in the game as long as I have, eventually you end up passing the torch to the next generation. This resonated with Naruto, who had similarly gone from student to teacher in his own journey. We have a saying in my world. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. When the student is truly ready, the teacher disappears. Wise words, Tommy acknowledged. Though in my case, the disappearing part never quite took. He gestured to a central pedestal where an ancient-looking book rested in a protective case. This is why I asked you down here. The scroll of shadows that Billy found was why part of a larger collection of prophecies and histories, most lost when the original command center was destroyed. But some survived, Billy added, approaching the pedestal. This is the Book of T. He grinned. What remains of Zordon's personal records of Ranger history and prophecy? Zordon, Naruto asked. Our mentor, Kimberly explained softly. The being who chose us to be the original Ranger team. He sacrificed himself years ago to save the universe from a wave of evil. Naruto nodded in understanding, sensing the deep respect and loss they still felt. He'd experienced similar losses, the third Hokage, Jiraiya, and others who had guided him along his path. Tommy carefully opened the protective case, revealing a book bound in what appeared to be metal and leather, its pages glowing faintly from within. Most of this text is written in Eltarian, Zordon's native language. We've only been able to translate portions, and even those only recently. He turned to a specific page mark. D with a symbol that Naruto immediately recognized, a spiral pattern nearly identical to the Uzumaki clan crest. That's, he began, surprised. The symbol of the Uzumaki clan, Tommy finished for him. At least, that's what the translated text calls it. According to this passage, there was an ancient connection between the original Morphin masters and a clan of energy manipulators from another. Dimension. Specialists in sealing techniques who helped create the earliest power coins. Naruto stared at the symbol, mind racing. The Uzumaki clan had indeed been renowned for their sealing techniques. Their village destroyed because other nations feared their power. Could there truly have been a connection between his ancestors and this world? The passage speaks of a great sage who traveled between dimensions, Billy continued, pointing to another section of text. A warrior who could manifest 6 distinct energy types, what the text calls, the 6 paths of the grid. The 6 paths, Naruto echoed, the term striking a chord. In my world, there was the sage of 6 paths, the originator of ninjutsu, the first to harness chakra for peacekeeping rather than war. The parallels are remarkable, Kat observed. Too specific to be coincidence. There's more, Tommy said, turning to another page. This section was translated just last year, after the legendary battle temporarily united all Ranger powers. It describes the grid structure as having 6 fundamental energy types that form the foundation of all Ranger powers. He pressed a button on the pedestal, and a holographic display appeared above the book, showing 6 interconnected energy fields, each a different color: red, blue, yellow, green, pink, and black. These correspond to different aspects of the morphological field, he explained. Red represents courage and leadership, blue represents intelligence and loyalty, yellow represents heart and endurance, green represents growth and adaptability, pink represents compassion and precision. Black represents strength and resilience. Naruto studied the display, seeing immediate parallels to the chakra nature transformations of his world: fire, water, lightning, wind, earth, and yin-yang. In my world, he said slowly, ninjas can have affinity for different chakra natures, elements that their techniques naturally align with. Most Jonin, elite ninjas, master 2 or 3. I've managed to incorporate all 5 basic natures, plus the combined yin-yang release. 6 energy types, Billy noted. Just like the prophecy mentions. And when I fought alongside Kimberly, Naruto continued, the connections becoming clearer. I could feel my chakra resonating with her Ranger energy, like they were compatible somehow. Tommy's expression grew more serious. The prophecy speaks of a time when the barriers between dimensions would weaken, allowing the Sage of Rangers to emerge and unite all Ranger powers to face a threat to both worlds. He looked directly at Naruto. I think we need to test your compatibility with the Morphin grid more directly. 40 minutes later, they stood in a clearing behind Tommy's house. Billy had set up a perimeter of sensors to monitor energy fluctuations, while Tommy had retrieved a locked case from his command center. These are inert, he explained as he opened the case, revealing what appeared to be 5 coins similar to the one Kimberly had used to transform. They're training replicas I created for research, connected to the Morphin grid but unable to trigger a full morphing sequence. They should be enough to test your affinity without risking a catastrophic energy release. Naruto, still in sage mode, could see the energy flowing through the coins, subdued but present, each resonating at a sly TLY different frequency corresponding to the colors Tommy had shown him in the hologram. What do I need to do? He asked. Normally, a potential ranger is chosen based on their natural alignment with a specific aspect of the grid. Tommy explained. The prophecy suggests you might be compatible with all aspects, but we should test them individually first. He handed Naruto the red coin. Start with this one. Focus your chakra into it, similar to how you'd channel energy into a technique. Naruto took the coin, immediately feeling a warm resonance as it touched his palm. He channeled a small amount of chakra into it, careful not to overload the object. The coin began to glow, softly at first, then with increasing brightness until it shone like a miniature sun in his hand. Remarkable compatibility, Billy commented, checking his readings. The coin is responding as if it were bonded to you. They repeated the process with each coin: blue, yellow, green, pink, and finally black. Each responded similarly, though with subtle variations in how they interacted with Naruto's chakra. The yellow and blue coins show particularly strong resonance, Billy noted. Corresponding to Naruto's natural affinities, perhaps. Wind and water were my first natural affinities, Naruto confirmed. Though I've since developed proficiency with all 5 basic natures. Tommy collected the coins, looking thoughtful. The prophecy might be more literal than we initially assumed. If you can channel all 6 aspects of the Morphin grid through your chakra system, I could theoretically access any ranger power, Naruto finished. Understanding the implication. But why? What purpose would that serve? Before Tommy could respond, a series of alarms blared from both his wrist communicator and Billy's equipment. Kat emerged from the house, her expression urgent. Tommy, we've got incoming transmissions, multiple sources. Something's happening globally. They rushed back to the command center, where the main screen had automatically divided to show various news reports from around the world. Disturbances similar to the one that had brought Naruto to Angel Grove were appearing in cities globally: Tokyo, London, Cape Town, Rio de Janeiro, New York. It's accelerating, Billy said grimly, analyzing the data streaming in. The dimensional barriers are weakening at an exponential rate. One news report showed familiar creatures emerging from a rift in downtown Silver Hills, the same stone-like beings Naruto and Kimberly had fought in Angel Grove, but in greater numbers and with more coordinated movements. They're evolving, Kimberly observed. Learning. Another screen showed a similar situation in Turtle Cove, where the creatures were engaged in battle with 2 individuals in what appeared to be ranger armor, one yellow, one silver. Taylor and Merrick, Tommy identified them. Wild Force Rangers. They're holding their own for now, but those creatures seem stronger than what you described facing yesterday. Quote, we need to coordinate a response, Kat said, already activating a communication system. I'll contact as many active and reserve rangers as possible, and I need to find a way back to my world. Naruto added urgently, if these rifts are appearing here, they're likely manifesting in my dimension as well. My friends could be facing similar threats with understanding what they're dealing with. Billy nodded in agreement. With these new rifts forming, we might be able to establish a communication link, if not actual physical transport yet. I'll need to modify my equipment. A new alert interrupted him, this one from Tommy's personal communication channel. The screen shifted to show a young woman with caramel-colored hair streaked with blonde highlights. She appeared to be in her late 20s, with an intensity in her eyes that reminded Naruto somewhat of Sakura when she was focused on a problem. Doctor. Oh, she greeted Tommy, her voice tense. Please tell me you're seeing what's happening out there, because my Dino Gem just decided to wake up from its 3-year nap, and I'm getting really weird vibes about why. Kira. Tommy acknowledged, his tone shifting to one Naruto recognized from experienced leaders addressing trusted team members. We're aware of the situation. Where are you? New York, she replied, the camera view shifting to show a cityscape behind her. I was here for a recording session when my gem started reacting. Then these stone zombie things started pouring out of what looked like a tear in reality. Her gaze shifted, noticing Naruto for the first time. Who's the blonde with the weird eyes? That's Naruto, Tommy explained briefly. He's connected to what's happening. Kira Ford, former Yellow Dino Thunder Ranger. He added for Naruto's benefit. Charmed, Kira said with a brief nod to Naruto before returning her attention to Tommy. I'm not the only one whose powers are reactivating. I just go. TA call from Trent. His white Dino gem is glowing again too. The gems are responding to the dimensional disturbances, Billy theorized. They're partially extraterrestrial in origin. They might be sensitive to breaks in the space-time continuum. Whatever the reason, I could use some backup here, Kira said, her voice remaining calm despite the obvious tension in her expression. These things are tougher than Tyrannodrones. And there are civilians trapped in the area. We'll send help, Tommy assured her. In the meantime, I know. Protect the civilians, contain the threat, don't escalate unnecessarily. She rolled her eyes slightly. Some things never change, drive. Oh, the screen suddenly shook as an explosion sounded in the background. Kira glanced over her shoulder, her expression hardening. Gotta go. These things just breached the police perimeter. The connection cut abruptly, leaving the command center in momentary silence. Your former student, Naruto asked Tommy. He nodded. One of the best. Stubborn, independent, but absolutely reliable in a crisis. We need to get to New York, Kimberly said decisively. If the creatures there are anything like the ones we faced in Angel Grove, conventional forces won't be able to contain them. Agreed, Tommy replied, already moving toward a wall panel that opened to reveal various equipment and weapons. But, we can't leave Reefside unprotected either. These rifts are appearing worldwide. One could open here at any moment. I can help with that, Naruto said, forming his signature hand sign. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. A dozen perfect copies of Naruto appeared throughout the command center, startling everyone except Billy, who had witnessed the technique earlier. My clones can stay here as an early warning system and first line of defense, Naruto explained. They can dispel themselves to instantly alert me if a rift opens in this area. Tommy looked impressed. That's extremely useful. If they have all your abilities, they should be able to hold off any incursion long enough for reinforcements to arrive. They do, Naruto confirmed. They're not as durable as the original. A solid hit will dispel them, but otherwise, they're fully functional. Then it's settled, Kimberly said. Tommy, Naruto and I will head to New York to back up Kira. Billy, you and Kat coordinate the global response and continue working on establishing communication with Naruto's world. I have something that might help with transportation, Tommy said, leading them to yet another hidden section of the command center. This panel revealed what appeared to be a small aircraft hangar built into the mountainside, housing a sleek black and green vehicle unlike anything Naruto had seen before. As that, Kimberly began, eyes wide. The Dragonzord jet, Tommy confirmed. After Andros recovered the green power coin, I was able to channel some of its remaining energy into this prototype. It's not a true Zord, but it's faster than any conventional aircraft and has basic cloaking capabilities. Impressive, Naruto commented, though the technology was well beyond anything from his world. How long to reach New York? About 30 minutes at maximum speed, Tommy replied, already preparing the craft for launch. Let's just hope we're not too late. While events unfolded in the Ranger world, the ninja world was facing its own crisis. In the Hokage's office in Konoha, Kakashi Hatake stood before a large map table, his normally lazy demeanor replaced by sharp focus as he coordinated search efforts. Still nothing from the sensory division? He asked, not looking up from the map where various markers indicated search team positions. Shikamaru Nara, standing nearby with his own stack of reports, shook his head. No trace of Naruto's chakra signature anywhere in the 5 great nations. It's like he simply vanished. People don't just vanish, Sakura Haruno countered, entering the office with Sai close behind. Her pink hair was disheveled from hours of non-stop work, but her eyes burned with determined intensity. Especially not someone with Naruto's chakra reserves. Whatever happened at the Valley of the End? It wasn't a conventional attack or abduction. Agreed, Kakashi said, finally looking up. As the 6th Hokage, he had faced numerous crises, but the Disciparon, CE of the village's greatest hero, and his former student, struck particularly close to home. What did you find at the site? Sai unrolled a detailed sketch he had made of the Valley of the End, complete with annotated energy readings. The residual chakra patterns are unlike anything we've encountered. There's Naruto's chakra signature, of course, but it's intertwined with an unknown energy type. That doesn't match any recorded Kekkei Genkai or tailed beast. I had Ino's father examine the psychic impression left at the scene, Sakura added. He detected no malice or hostile intent in the residual energies, which rules out most forms of enemy action. So not an attack, Shikamaru concluded. More like a natural phenomenon. Or an accidental activation of something ancient, Kakashi suggested, his mind working through possibilities. The Valley of the End has historical significance beyond the statues. It marks the site where Hashirama and Madara's final battle altered the landscape itself. There's something else, Sakura said, hesitation evident in her voice. I found this embedded in the rock where Naruto was last standing. She placed a small crystal fragment on the top. BLE, purple with faint internal illumination, similar to the one found on Naruto's jacket in the Ranger world, though neither group was aware of the connection. I've never seen anything like it, Kakashi admitted, examining the fragment without touching it. Shizune is running tests, but preliminary results show it's not composed of any element known to our world. A knock at the door interrupted them as Hinata Hyuga entered. Her Byakugan activated. Lord Hokage, there's something you need to see. Strange energy distortions are appearing at multiple locations around the village perimeter. similar to what was detected at the Valley of the End? Kakashi asked, immediately alert. Yes, but smaller in scale. They appear to be growing. Kakashi made an immediate decision. Shikamaru, alert all Jonin and Anbu. Establish perimeters around these distortions but maintain safe distance. Sakura, assemble a medical response team in case we're dealing with something that can cause chakra disruption. Sai, I want aerial surveillance of all anomalies. As they moved to execute his orders, Kakashi turned to the window, gazing out at the village he was responsible for protecting. Where are you, Naruto? He murmured. And what have you gotten yourself into this time? The Dragonzord jet streaked across the American continent at speeds that made Naruto's fastest ninja movement seem pedestrian by comparison. Through the viewport, he watched landscapes blur beneath them, mountains, plains, cities flashing by in rapid succession. Your technology is remarkable, he commented to Tommy, who piloted the craft with practiced ease. In my world, we have nothing like this. Different worlds develop along different paths, Tommy replied. Your ability to manipulate personal energy. Why for techniques is far beyond what most people here could imagine. Even Rangers rely on external power sources to enhance their natural abilities. Kimberly, seated behind them, was monitoring Globa L communications on a specialized console. Update from Billy, she reported. Additional Ranger teams have responded to incursions in their areas. Time Force in Silver Hills, Lightspeed Rescue in Mariner Bay. Galaxy Rangers in Terra Venture Colony. Any pattern to where the rifts are appearing? Tommy asked. Primarily locations with historical Ranger activity, Kimberly confirmed. Places we re the Morphin grid has been accessed repeatedly over time. That makes sense, Naruto said, thinking aloud. In my world, areas where powerful chakra has been used often become thin points in the dimensional barrier. It's why certain locations are more spiritually active or prone to supernatural phenomena. The veil between worlds, Tommy nodded in understanding. Worn thin by repeated energy manipulation. The onboard computer chimed, indicating they were approaching their destination. Through the cockpit viewport, New York City came into view, its distinctive skyline immediately recognizable even to Naruto, who had seen images of such cities in movies that had made their way to the ninja world. I'm detecting multiple energy signatures consistent with the creatures you encountered in Angel Grove, Tommy reported. Checking the craft's sensors, concentrated in Midtown Manhattan, near Central Park. I see Kira, Kimberly said, pointing to a flash of yellow moving among the buildings. Even from their altitude, they could see the yellow Dino Ranger engaging multiple stone creatures, her supersonic scream, her unique Ranger ability, visibly rippling through the air as she fought. Tommy brought the jet down on a building rooftop near the battle, engaging its cloaking field to prevent detection by civilians or authorities. As they disembarked, the sounds of combat reached them clearly, explosions. The distinctive sonic waves of Kira's terror scream, and the rumbling movements of the stone creatures. Kira's holding her own, Tommy observed as they reached the edge of the rooftop. But she's outnumbered at least 20 to 1. Naruto assessed the tactical situation with practiced ease, years of combat experience allowing him to quickly identify patterns in the enemy movements. They're more organized than the ones we fought yesterday, he noted. More intelligent. They're actually using flanking maneuvers. They're adapting, Kimberly agreed grimly. Learning from each encounter. Then let's give them something new to learn, Tommy said, pulling a device from his pocket that resembled a key with a dinosaur head. Ready, Kimberly nodded, retrieving her own morpher. Like riding a bike, right? Naruto, your shadow clones could help evacuate civilians while we engage the main force, Tommy suggested. Your chakra seems to draw these creatures. Attention, we can use that to our advantage. Agreed, Naruto said, already forming the hand signs for his jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 50 clones appeared on the rooftop, each awaiting instructions. Yuto divided them into teams, some for evacuation, others for perimeter security, and a strike team to support the Rangers directly. With their plan set, Tommy and Kimberly stepped forward, activating their morphers in synchronized movements. Dino Thunder, power up. It's Morphin time. Pterodactyl, energy enveloped them both. Black with green highlights for Tommy, pink for Kimberly, materializing into their respective Ranger forms. The transformation complete, They leapt from the rooftop toward the battle below, their enhanced abilities allowing them to safely navigate the 10-story drop. Naruto followed, channeling chakra to his feet to control his descent along the building's vertical surface. His shadow clones dispersed according to the plan, moving with ninja speed through the chaos to reach endangered civilians. As they landed in what had once been a busy intersection, Kira spotted them and fought her way over, her yellow helmet masking her expression but her body language showing clear relief. "About time you showed up," she called to Tommy, her voice slightly distorted through her helmet. "I was beginning to think I'd have to handle this reunion tour solo." "We brought reinforcements," Tommy replied, gesturing to Naruto and the dozens of identical clones now engaged throughout the battlefield. Kira's helmet turned toward Naruto, her stance indicating surprise. "Okay, the multiply thing is new. Handy, though." A creature larger than the others, nearly 3 meters tall with crystalline growths protruding from its shoulders, emerged from the dimensional rift. Chi hung suspended in the air above the street. Unlike the others, this one moved with deliberate purpose, its glowing purple eyes fixing directly on Naruto. "Target located," it spoke in a grinding, human voice that nonetheless carried clear intelligence. "Primary objective: capture the sage." "They can talk now," Kimberly noted tensely. "Definitely evolving. And they know who you are," Tommy added to Naruto. "Or what you represent." The large creature gestured, and the smaller ones immediately altered their attack pattern, focusing primarily on creating a path for their leader to reach Naruto. "Well, if they want me so badly," Naruto said, stepping forward, "let's give them something to remember." He formed a series of hand signs, gathering chakra. Wind style. Recentrican. Chi. Spinning disk of wind-natured chakra formed in his palm, expanded to its full size, and then launched toward the leader creature. The attack connected with devastating force, the wind blades shredding through the crystalline body and exploding in a hemisphere of destructive energy. When the light faded, however, the creature remained standing, damaged but intact, its body regenerating before their eyes. "Okay, that's not good," Kira commented. "What exactly is that jutsu thing supposed to do?" "Cellular-level destruction," Naruto replied grimly. "Nothing should be able to withstand it, let alone regenerate afterward." "They must be drawing power directly from the dimensional rift," Tommy theorized, engaging several smaller creatures with his brachio staff. "We need to close it." Kimberly and Kira moved in perfect coordination despite having never fought together before, their ranger training creating an intuitive teamwork. Kimberly's power bow provided ranged support while Kira engaged in close combat with her Terra grips. "Naruto," Tommy called between strikes, "can you seal the rift like you did in Angel Grove?" "I can try," Naruto replied, "but it's larger and more stable than the previous one. I'll need time to modify the technique." "We'll buy you that time," Kira assured him, unleashing her Terra scream at a group of approaching creatures, the sonic attack temporarily disrupting their stone bodies. Naruto created another shadow clone to help maintain his defense while he focused on adapting the sealing technique. This dimensional rift was indeed different, no a random tear but a deliberately created portal, maintained by some external force. As he worked through the necessary modifications, Naruto observed the Rangers' fighting styles, noting how each utilized the Morphin grid energy differently. Tommy's movements were disciplined and precise, reflecting years of martial arts training enhanced by Ranger power. Kimberly fought with gymnastic grace, using momentum and flexibility to compensate for her smaller stature. Kira was aggressive and direct, her attacks enhanced by occasional sonic bursts that disrupted the creature's cohesion. There was something familiar about their energy, something that resonated with his own chakra in ways he couldn't fully explain. The 6 paths mentioned in the prophecy. An idea struck him. If the Ranger PORs were indeed connected to the 6 fundamental energy types Tommy had shown him, perhaps he could incorporate aspects of that structure into his sealing technique. "I need direct access to the rift," he called to the Rangers. "Can you clear a path to the center?" Tommy nodded, understanding immediately. Kimberly, Kira, Convergence Pattern Alpha. The 3 Rangers shifted their attacks, creating a triangular formation that pushed back the creatures surrounding the rift. Naruto moved into the space they created, directly beneath the swirling portal. The leader creature, now fully regenerated, roared in what sounded like anger. "Prevent the sealing," it commanded, and its subordinates redoubled their efforts to reach Naruto. "Whatever you're going to do it fast," Kira shouted, unleashing another Terra scream to hold back the advancing horde. Naruto entered Sage mode, allowing him to better perceive the dimensional energies at work. With this enhanced perception, he could see the rift was anchored at 6 points, each corresponding to one of the fundamental energy types Tommy had identified in the command center. "I need to disconnect it from the Morphin grid," he realized aloud. "It's drawing power from both sides of the dimensional barrier." He began forming a complex series of hand signs, combining elements of the 5-element seal with the structure he'd observed in the Morphin grid. As he worked, he felt his chakra resonating with the ranger energies nearby, drawing strength from their presence, synchronizing with their power signatures. 6-path sealing technique. Dimensional barrier. Naruto slammed his palm into the ground directly beneath the rift. Glowing symbols spread outward in a hexagonal pattern, each corner corresponding to one of the 6 paths energies. The symbols rose upward, surrounding the rift in a cage of chakra that began contracting, forcing the portal closed. The leader creature let out a howl of rage, abandoning its fight with Tommy to charge directly at Naruto. The sealing must not complete. Tommy intercepted it with his brachio staff, but the creature's enhanced strength threw him aside. Kimberly's energy arrows struck its back, slowing but not stopping its advance. Naruto couldn't move. The sealing technique required his constant focus and chakra input. If he broke concentration now, the rift would likely expand explosively, causing even greater damage. As the creature closed in, Kira appeared between them, her Terra grips crossed defensively. "Not happening, rock face." She unleashed her strongest PTER, a scream directly into the creature's crystalline body. The sonic vibrations found resonant frequencies within the creature's structure, causing cracks to spread throughout its form. The creature staggered but continued forward, reaching for Naruto with stone hands now fracturing under the sonic assault. In that moment, something unexpected happened. Naruto's sealing technique, drawing on the ambient Morphin grid energy, created a feedback loop with Kira's sonic attack. The yellow energy of her ranger power flowed into the sealing matrix, strengthening the corresponding point in the hexagonal barrier. "That's it," Naruto exclaimed, understanding blooming. "Rangers, channel your power into the seal." Tommy understood immediately. "Direct your ranger energy toward Naruto's technique." The 3 rangers took positions at different points around the hexagonal seal, each instinctively aligning with the energy type most resonant with their own power. Tommy's black and green energy, Kimberly's pink, and Kira's yellow flowed into the matrix, strengthening 3 of the 6 points. "We're still missing 3 aspects," Naruto observed, feeling the seal stabilize but remain incomplete. "Red, blue, and white. Then let me contribute what I can," Tommy said, drawing on his experience as former Red Zeo and White Rangers. He channeled these past connections through his current form, providing echoes of the missing energies. The seal strengthened further, the rift contracting rapidly now. The creatures, sensing their connection to the other dimension fading, fought with increased desperation. With a final surge of effort, Naruto channeled all of his remaining chakra into the technique. Seal. The hexagonal barrier contracted to a single point, closing the dimensional rift with a thunderous implosion that sent a shockwave across several city blocks. The creatures, cut off from their power source, collapsed into piles of inert stone and crystal. Naruto fell to one knee, exhausted but satisfied. The seal had worked, better than he could have hoped, thanks to the ranger's contribution. He looked up to see Tommy offering a hand, which he gratefully accepted. "That," Kira said, removing her helmet to reveal an impressed expression, "was seriously cool. Is that how ninja magic usually works?" "It's not magic," Naruto corrected with a tired smile. "Just chakra. And no, that was something new. A combination of my sealing technique and your ranger energy. A perfect demonstration of the prophecy," Tommy observed. "The Sage of Rangers, uniting the 6 energy types to protect both worlds." Kimberly approached, also removing her helmet. The creatures all collapsed when the rift closed. "It looks like they can't maintain their form without the connection to the energy source. But there are more rifts opening worldwide," Tommy reminded them, checking his communicator. And likely in Naruto's world as well. We need to establish communication with my friends, Naruto agreed. They need to know what they're dealing with. Hira looked between them, brow furrowed. Okay, I'm clearly missing a lot of context here. Someone want to fill me in on the interdimensional ninja situation. It's a long story, Kimberly began. One we should continue somewhere less exposed, Tommy interrupted, noting the approach of emergency vehicles and news helicopters. Quote, the last thing we need is to try explaining this to the authorities or the media. Naruto nodded in agreement, gathering his remaining chakra. My shadow clones have finished evacuating civilians from the immediate area. They can create a diversion while we retreat. My hotel isn't far from here, Hira offered. It's not exactly a secret base, but it'll give us somewhere to regroup while we figure out next steps. As they moved to leave the battlefield, Naruto paused, sensing something amiss. A residual energy signature, similar to the creatures but different somehow, more focused, more intelligent. He scanned the surroundings but saw nothing concrete, just a fleeting shadow on a distant rooftop. Everything okay? Kimberly asked, noticing his hesitation. Yeah, Naruto replied, though uncertainty lingered. Just thought I sensed something watching us. Probably just paranoia after a fight like that, Hira suggested practically. I always feel like I'm being watched after morphing in public. Naruto nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling that something important had just transpired, something beyond the successful sealing of the rift. As if they had passed some kind of test. The shadow on the distant rooftop, unnoticed by the departing heroes, solidified briefly into a humanoid form. It raised what appeared to be a communication device. Phase 1 complete, it reported in a voice neither male nor female. The sage's compatibility with ranger energy is confirmed. Proceed with Phase 2. The figure dissolved back into shadow, leaving no trace of its presence as M. Urgency services arrived at the scene of the battle. In Kira's hotel suite, the four warriors gathered around a table covered with maps and communication devices. Tommy had established a secure link to his command center, where Billy and Kat were coordinating the global response to the dimensional incursions. The sealing technique worked in New York, Tommy reported, but we can't expect Naruto to personally close every rift that's opening. There are simply too many, and they're appearing faster than we can respond. I think I've identified a pattern, Billy replied through the video link. The rifts are appearing at nodes where the Morphin grid has particularly strong manifestations, primarily former Ranger battle sites or locations of significant morphological importance. Like Ranger bases and command centers. Kimberly suggested. Exactly, Billy confirmed. I've been working on a modification to Ranger communications technology that might allow us to establish contact with Naruto's dimension. If we can align the frequency precisely with the energy signature of the rifts, we could create a stable communication channel, Tommy finished, understanding the concept. Or potentially even a controlled portal, Billy added. But that would require significantly more power and precision. Naruto, who had been silently studying the global map of rift activities, spoke up. There's another pattern here. Look at the timing of the rifts. They're appearing in sequence, moving generally eastward across the globe. Almost like someone systematically targeting specific locations, Hira finished. Seeing the pattern as well. This isn't random at all. Which means the incursion into my world was deliberate, Naruto concluded grimly. Someone or something wanted me here, in this dimension. The prophecy, Tommy said quietly. The Sage of Rangers emerges when the dimensions begin to falter. What if someone is deliberately weakening the dimensional barriers to fulfill that prophecy, or to exploit it? A heavy silence fell over the room as they considered the implications. If the dimensional incursions were being orchestrated rather than occurring naturally, they were facing an enemy with knowledge of both worlds and the power to manipulate the barriers between them. We need more information, Kimberly finally said. About the prophecy, about these creatures, about whoever might be behind this. And I need to let my people know what's happening, Naruto added. If similar rifts are opening in my world, they need to understand what they're dealing with. There's something else we should consider, Hira said, her expression thoughtful. When we combined our Ranger energy with Naruto's sealing technique, it created something more powerful than either could achieve alone. If the prophecy is about uniting the power of both worlds, Then we need to find other points of compatibility, Tommy nodded. Other ways our different energy systems can work together. My Dino Gem responded particularly strongly to Naruto's chakra, Kira continued, looking down at the yellow stone embedded in her bracelet. More so than it ever did to any other power source we encountered. The gems have always been somewhat unpredictable, Tommy acknowledged. Their connection to the morphing grid is unique, less structured than traditional power coins or morphers. Which might make them more compatible with chakra, Billy suggested through the link. Traditional ranger powers follow strictly defined pathways within the morphin grid. The Dino Gems allow for more personalized expressions of power. Like Kira's sonic scream, Naruto noted. That's not a standard ranger ability, is it? No, Tommy confirmed. Each Dino Ranger developed unique abilities based on their personal connection to their gem. Kira's sonic powers, Connor's super speed, Ethan's armor. And your invisibility, Kira added, glancing at Tommy. The Ms adapted to our natural talents and tendencies. Similar to how chakra natures align with personality traits in my world, Naruto said, seeing the connection. Fire nature often manifests in passionate people, water in adaptable ones. And so on. So the Dino Gems might be a bridge between our power systems, Kimberly summarized. A more flexible connection to the morphin grid that could interact with chakra more readily. It's worth investigating, Tommy agreed. Especially since all 5 Dino Gems have reportedly reactivated simultaneously, something that's never happened before. EU alert chimed from Tommy's communicator. Kat's voice came through, tension evident in her tone. Tommy, we've got a priority situation developing in Blue Bay Harbor. A rift has opened at the former Wind Ninja Academy site. Naruto straightened immediately. Wind Ninja Academy, home of the Ninja Storm Rangers, Tommy explained quickly. A team that combined martial arts traditions similar to your world's with ranger technology. The rift there is larger than any we've detected so far, Kat continued. And we're picking up energy signatures that match both the creatures from previous incursions and something else. Something more powerful. We need to get there immediately, Tommy said, already moving toward the door. Wait, Kira interjected. I just got a text from Trent. He and Connor are nearby, in San Francisco for a soccer exhibition. They could reach Blue Bay Harbor before us. Tell them to proceed with caution, Tommy instructed. Observation only until we arrive. These rifts are becoming more dangerous with each manifestation. I think I should go to Blue Bay Harbor, Naruto said firmly. If it's a ninja academy, there might be records or techniques there that could help us understand the connection between our worlds. Maybe even clues about the Uzumaki clan's involvement with the original power coins. Agreed, Tommy nodded. Kira, you said all the no gems are reactivating. Does that mean yours is at full power again? She nodded, the yellow stone on her wrist glowing softly. Feels like it never went dormant. Why? Because we're going to need all the ranger power we can get. Tommy replied grimly. Billy's readings suggest the rift at the Wind Ninja Academy isn't just larger, it's more stable, more permanent. Like someone is trying to create a lasting connection between dimensions, Kimberly suggested. Or a beachhead for invasion, Naruto added, his expression hardening as he thought of his friends potentially facing unknown dangers. Either way, we need to get there now. The Dragonzord jet can get us to Blue Bay Harbor in under 20 minutes, Tommy said, checking his equipment. Kimberly, can you coordinate with Billy too? Keep monitoring global rift activity while we're en route. She nodded, already moving to establish the necessary communications link. I should contact the other Dino Rangers directly, Kira added. If our gems have some special connection to what's happening, we might need the full team. As they prepared to depart, Naruto took a moment to center himself, closing his eyes and focusing on the faint connection he still maintained with Kurama across the dimensional barrier. I'm getting closer to understanding what's happening, he thought, hoping the Nine Tails could sense his consciousness. Hold on a little longer. I'm finding a way back. Whether it was imagination or genuine response, he felt a faint pulse of familiar chakra, distant but present, like a lighthouse beacon across a vast, dimensional sea. With renewed determination, Naruto rejoined the Rangers. Let's go. Whatever's waiting for us at the Wind Ninja Academy, I have a feeling it's the next piece of this puzzle. As they departed Kira's hotel, none of them noticed the small purple crystal fragment that had attached itself to Kira's guitar case during the battle, identical to the one found on Naruto's jacket and the one discovered by Sakura in the ninja world. Like its counterparts, it pulsed with faint energy, transmitting data across dimensions to an unknown receiver. The first pieces were moving into place. The prophecy of the Sage of Rangers was unfolding, but whether toward salvation or catastrophe remained to be seen. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Echoes Across Time. The Wind Ninja Academy had always existed in two worlds simultaneously, the physical realm where students trained their bodies, and the spiritual plane where they honed their elemental affinities. Nestled within a dimensional pocket, accessible only through a secret waterfall portal, the academy had weathered countless storms, both literal and figurative. Today, however, it faced a threat unprecedented in its centuries-long history. Naruto stood at the edge of the academy grounds, sage mode active as he surveyed the devastation before him. The main training yard lay in ruins, ancient stone monuments toppled and practice equipment scattered like leaves in a hurricane. At the center of it all pulsed an anomaly unlike anything he'd encountered before, not simply a rift between dimensions, but a controlled manipulation of space-time itself. "This is different from the other breaches," he said, eyes tracking the intricate energy patterns flowing around the tier. Purple-black energy crackled across the surface of what appeared to be a deliberately constructed portal, its edges maintained by 6 crystalline pillars arranged in a perfect hexagon. Tommy nodded grimly as he examined the security footage recovered from the Academy's surveillance system. According to these records, the attack began precisely 12 hours ago. The creatures emerged first, more evolved than those we encountered in New York, followed by someone, or something else. The final frames of footage showed a cloaked figure directing the stone creatures with deliberate hand gestures before the camera was destroyed. Sensei Watanabe and the remaining instructors evacuated the students through the emergency tunnels, Kira reported, returning from her reconnaissance of the perimeter. But at least 3 ninja masters stayed behind to contain the breach. And now they're missing, Kimberly concluded, examining disturbed earth that indicated a struggle. No bodies, though. They weren't killed, Naruto said with certainty, kneeling to touch the ground near one of the crystalline pillars. I can sense residual chakra signatures, similar to those from my world, but altered somehow. They were taken through the portal. Taken why? Kira questioned, her practical nature asserting itself. And by whom? Before anyone could hypothesize, a new sound cut through the unnatural stillness of the academy grounds, a high-pitched whine. Accompanied by rippling air displacement approximately 50 meters from their position. The Rangers immediately adopted defensive stances while Naruto created 3 shadow clones to establish a perimeter. Another breach? Tommy asked, his hand moving to his morpher. No, Naruto replied, his sage mode revealing distinctive energy patterns. This is different, more controlled, more precise. It's as if someone is cutting through time. A female voice finished his sentence as the distortion solidified into a swirling vortex of blue-white energy. A figure emerged from the temporal gateway. Why, a woman in her early 30s wearing a modified uniform unlike the standard ranger attire Naruto had seen thus far. Silver and black with pink accents, it bore the insignia, TF, on the shoulder. Her brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her expression conveyed both urgency and authority. Tommy immediately lowered his guard. Dr. Oliver, she acknowledged with a curt N.O.D. before her gaze swept over the others, lingering momentarily on Naruto. Kimberly. Kira. Her expression softened almost imperceptibly when she reached Naruto. And you must be the dimensional anim. Ali, that's causing my timeline monitors to malfunction. Naruto Uzumaki. He introduced himself, allowing his sage mode to fade as he determined she posed no threat. And you are Jennifer Scott's Time Force Pink Ranger. Her tone was professional but not unfriendly. I've traveled from the year 3023 to address a critical temporal incursion, one that appears to be centered around your arrival in this dimension. Tommy stepped forward. Jen, what exactly are you seeing from the future perspective? Her expression tightened. Multiple timeline fractures originating from this point in history. According to our records, this period should have been relatively stable in Ranger history, a time of peace between major threats. Instead, She activated a holographic projector on her wrist, displaying a complex web of timeline branches, many glowing red to indicate instability. Timeline alterations are cascading forward into my era and beyond. Critical historical events are shifting or disappearing entirely. She manipulated the hologram to highlight several specific points. The United Alliance of Rangers never forms. The peace treaty of Eltar fails. Several ranger teams that should exist never come into being. Because of me, Naruto asked, the weight of responsibility immediately settling on his shoulders. Not directly, Jen clarified, studying him with analytical precision. Your presence here is both a catalyst and a response to something else, something that's deliberately manipulating the dimensional barriers for unknown purposes. Kimberly moved closer to examine the holographic timeline. These alterations, they're not random, are they? They follow a pattern. Precisely, Jen confirmed, which is why Time Force authorized my intervention. Normally, we're forbidden from directly interfering with established events, but this. She gestured to the constructed portal. This isn't natural temporal evolution. Someone is systematically dismantling the foundations of Ranger history. And they're using my world's connection to yours to do it, Naruto concluded, his tactical mind quickly processing the implications. The creatures we've fought, they're hybrids. Drawing power from both the Morphin grid and chakra. Tommy's communicator chimed with an incoming transmission. This is Oliver. Tommy, it's Billy. We've completed preliminary analysis of THE crystal fragments recovered from the various incursion sites. The Blue Ranger's voice carried the excitement of scientific discovery tempered by obvious concern. They're composed of a previously unknown element that exhibits properties of both morphological energy and what we believe to be Naruto's chakra. Someone's created a way to merge the two energy types, Kira realized aloud. Not just merge them, Billy continued. The crystalline structure appears designed to harvest and store the combined energy, like batteries that can maintain a charge across dimensional barriers. That explains why they're targeting locations with strong Morphin grid connections, Tommy theorized. They're harvesting energy. For what purpose? Kimberly questioned. Jen's expression darkened as she shut down her holographic display. In my time, there are legends about an ancient being who sought to control all dimensions by manipulating their fundamental energy structures. The stories call this entity the Morpheus, a consciousness that exists between realities, feeding on the energy of creation itself. That sounds disturbingly similar to Kagaya Otsutsuki from my world, Naruto said, the parallels impossible to ignore. An ancient being who consumed the god tree's fruit to gain control over all chakra, nearly enslaving humanity in the process. Different dimensions, similar threats, Tommy observed grimly. The universe seems to have a pattern. Before they could discuss further, the crystalline pillars surrounding the portal began pulsing with increased intensity. The air around the academy shimmered as if viewed through heat waves, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. Something's coming through, Naruto warned, instantly re-entering sage mode. Something big. Rangers, ready, Tommy commanded, his years of leadership evident in his tone. Dino Thunder, power up. It's Morphin time. Pterodactyl, time for Time Force. The three Rangers morphed simultaneously. Their transformations illuminating the academy grounds in flashes of pink, yellow, and black. Naruto, meanwhile, created additional shadow clones and prepared a Rasengan in his right palm. The portal's surface rippled violently before disgorging three figures, humanoid but clearly not human. Their bodies appeared composed of the same stone crystal material as the smaller creatures they'd fought previously, but with more defined features and obvious intelligence in their glowing eyes. Most disturbing, however, were the emblems they wore, corrupted versions of ninja village symbols from Naruto's world. Leaf, sand, and mist. Naruto identified, recognizing the distorted headband symbols. They've corrupted ninja from my dimension. The central figure, bearing a twisted leaf village emblem, stepped forward. Its voice emerged as a grating rumble, like stones grinding together. The Sage of Rangers, your presence is required by the Convergence. Who or what is the Convergence? Tommy demanded, brachio staff at the ready. The creature ignored him, its focus remaining entirely on Naruto. Your resistance is noted but futile. The prophecy will fulfill regardless of your cooperation. I make my own destiny. Naruto responded, the Rasengan in his palm expanding as he channeled more chakra into it. And I don't respond well to threats. The creature tilted its head in what might have been amusement. Not a threat, an inevitability. The dimensions are already bleeding together. The barriers weaken with each passing moment. As if to emphasize this point, the sky above the academy darkened unnaturally. Swirling clouds forming a vortex that mirrored the portal on the ground. Lightning crackled between the two phenomena, and Naruto felt a distinctive pull on his chakra, similar to what he'd experienced when first transported to this dimension. Whatever you're doing, stop it now. Kira demanded, her Terra grips crackling with yellow energy. We merely accelerate what has already begun. The sand-emblemed creature stated in a feminine voice that held echoes of a human it might once have been. The worlds were always meant to reunite. Reunite? Kimberly questioned. What does that mean? The mist creature raised its crystalline hands, generating a sphere of energy that displayed what appeared to be ancient historical images, primitive humans wielding both chakra and what looked like early Morphin energy simultaneously. One world, artificially divided, it explained. The Morphin Masters and the Sage of Six Paths, not enemies, but partners who disagreed on humanity's path forward. Their conflict split reality itself, creating separate dimensions that were never meant to exist independently. Naruto's eyes widened at this revelation. The history he knew spoke of the Sage of Six Paths as the progenitor of ninjutsu, the first to harness chakra for peacekeeping rather than war. But the full story of the sage's origins had always remained shrouded in mystery and legend. That's not possible, he argued, though uncertainty crept into his voice. The Sage of Six Paths created ninjutsu to bring peace to a world torn by constant warfare. Half-truths, the leaf creature dismissed. Your dimension remembers only fragments. As does this one. The complete history was deliberately obscured to prevent exactly what now occurs, the convergence of all dimensions under a single will. And let me guess, Jen interjected with evident skepticism, your convergence claims to be restoring the natural order. We serve the will of one who existed before the separation. The sand creature confirmed, one who witnessed the sundering of reality and has worked through millennia to restore what was broken. Enough talk, Tommy decided, clearly recognizing a delaying tactic. Whatever your plan is, it stops here. The Black Ranger charged forward, his brachio staff connecting solidly with the leaf creature's midsection. To everyone's surprise, the staff passed through as if striking water, the creature's form rippling before resolidifying. Physical attacks are ineffective, the creature stated matter-of-factly. We exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Naruto immediately adjusted his strategy. Then we attack on multiple levels simultaneously. Rangers, channel your energy into my technique. Understanding instantly, the Rangers moved to flank Naruto as he formed a more complex version of his Rasengan, one infused with natural energy from Sage Mode. As each Ranger touched the swirling sphere, their respective energies merged. Ed with the chakra construct. Tommy's black, Kimberly's pink, Kira's yellow, and Jen's temporal energy that shimmered with chronometric particles. Morphin style. Dimensional Rasengan. Naruto called out, the technique naming itself in his mind as the energies stabilized into a pulsating sphere that shifted through multiple color patterns. He launched forward, driving the enhanced Rasengan into the leaf creature's chest. This time, instead of passing through, the technique connected with devastating force. The creature's body destabilized, cracks spreading across its crystalline form as the combined dimensional energies disrupted its multi-planar existence. Impossible, it grated out before exploding into fragments that dissolved into purple light. The remaining creatures immediately changed tactics. The sand one gesturing toward the sky. The vortex above intensified, lightning strikes hammering the academy grounds with increasing frequency. They're trying to destabilize this entire area, Jen warned, her time force training allowing her to recognize the temporal implications. If they succeed, they could create a permanent dimensional breach. Kira unleashed her terror scream at the sand creature. The sonic attack finding resonant frequencies within its crystalline structure. Cracks appeared across its surface, but it maintained its form, redirecting the sonic energy into the vortex above. Kimberly, meanwhile, engaged the mist creature with her power bow, each arrow charged with pink energy that disrupted its molecular cohesion temporarily. Naruto, Tommy called out while parrying a crystal shard projectile. Can you seal the portal like you did the others? Not while it's being actively maintained, Naruto replied, creating more shadow clones to assist the Rangers. Those pillars are anchoring it from both sides of the dimensional barrier. We need to destroy them simultaneously. Jen activated her chrono scanner, analyzing the energy patterns. The pi, LLARS are phase-locked with specific temporal frequencies. If we can disrupt those frequencies, we can collapse the portal from this side, Tommy finished, understanding immediately. My clones can handle 5 of the pillars, Naruto said, already dividing his chakra to create the necessary duplicates. But we'll need to coordinate precisely. As they strategized, the sky continued to darken, the vortex expanding to encompass most of the visible atmosphere above the academy. Reality itself seemed to warp around them, objects flickering between states of existence as the dimensional barriers thinned. Most concerning, Naruto could now see glimpses of his own world through the distortions, brief flashes of Konoha, the Hokage monument, training fields where ninja practiced their techniques. The worlds were bleeding together, just as the creatures had claimed. We need to act now, Jen urged, her temporal sensors blaring warnings. Timeline collapse imminent. Naruto's shadow clone took positions around 5 of the 6 pillars, each preparing a Rasengan infused with Sage Chakra. The Rangers, meanwhile, confronted the remaining creatures to prevent interference with the plan. On my mark, Tommy called out, engaging his Brachio staff's full power mode. 3, 2, 1, now. The synchronized attack was executed with perfect precision. 5 Rasengans and Tommy's energy waves struck the pillars simultaneously. The crystalline structures vibrated at increasing frequencies, cracks spreading across their surfaces. For a moment, it seemed the plan had succeeded as the pillars began to crumble. Then, abruptly, the portal pulsed with renewed energy, the pillars regenerating almost instantly. It's being stabilized from the other side, Jen realized, checking her temporal scanner. There's an identical array in the other dimension. This revelation hit Naruto hard. Someone in his world was actively collaborating with these creatures, helping them maintain the dimensional breach. But who? Who would have both the knowledge and the motivation to risk the integrity of both realities? Before he could pursue this troubling thought, the mist creature broke free from its engagement with Kimberly and raised both arms toward the sky. The convergence comes regardless of your resistance, it announced. Behold the first wave of unification. The vortex above expanded explosively, and through it came dozens, then hundreds, of the stone creatures they had fought previously. But these were different, more evolved. Each bore ninja weapons and moved with the coordinated precision of trained shinobi. Most disturbingly, many wore fragments of recognizable ninja attire from various villages, headbands, flak jackets, clan symbols, suggesting they had once been human ninjas transformed by the crystal energy. They're converting people from my world, Naruto realized with horror. Using them to create an army. Not just your world, Jen corrected grimly, pointing to another group emerging from the portal. These new arrivals wore corrupted versions of ranger uniforms from various teams, twisted, crystallized mockeries of once heroic figures. Rangers too, Tommy said, his voice tight with controlled anger. They're taking people from both dimensions. The situation had deteriorated beyond their capacity to handle alone. Hundreds of corrupted warriors now filled the academy grounds, with more arriving by the moment. The dimensional barrier continued to weaken, reality itself becoming increasingly unstable around them. We need to retreat and regroup, Tommy decided, the tactical reality overriding his natural instinct to stand and fight. We can't close the portal without addressing the anchor points on both sides. Fall back to the secondary position, Kimberly agreed, covering their withdrawal with precise energy arrows that created temporary barriers of disrupted space. As they fought their way toward the Academy's emergency exit tunnel, Naruto's shadow clones provided critical cover, many sacrificing themselves to delay the advancing horde. Each dispelled clone returned its knowledge and experience to Naruto, providing valuable tactical information about their opponents. These aren't mindless drones, he reported as they reached the tunnel entrance. They retain combat skills and techniques from their original forms. Some are even using jutsu or ranger abilities, albeit corrupted versions, which means someone is deliberately preserving their capabilities while subverting their wills, Jen observed grimly. This isn't simple conversion, it's calculated repurposing. Quote, the group descended into the tunnel, Tommy and Kira securing the entrance behind them with a controlled cave-in that would slow pursuit. The passage led deep beneath the mountain, eventually connecting to a hidden hangar where emergency vehicles were maintained. Billy, come in. Tommy activated his communicator once they'd reached relative safety. We've got a situation far worse than anticipated. The Wind Ninja Academy has fallen to an interdimensional invasion force. We need immediate coordination with all available Ranger teams worldwide. I've been monitoring, Billy's voice replied, tension evident in his usually composed tone. It's not just the Academy, Tommy. We're detecting similar portal formations at multiple locations globally, all former Ranger bases are sites of significant morphological activity. A coordinated attack, Jen confirmed, checking her temporal scanner. Designed to establish beachheads across multiple strategic points simultaneously. We can't be everywhere at once, Kira pointed out, the practical concern unavoidable. No, Tommy agreed, but we can coordinate a global response. Billy, activate emergency protocol Zordon Alpha. All former Rangers, regardless of active status, are to be contacted and directed to their nearest incursion point. Already underway, Billy confirmed. Cat is coordinating WITH Lightspeed Rescue to establish a global command structure. But Tommy, some of these sites have no Ranger presence nearby. We're stretched thin. Naruto, who had been silently processing everything he'd learned, stepped forward with sudden determination. I might have a solution for that problem. What are you thinking? Kimberly asked, recognizing the look of someone who'd just had a breakthrough. My shadow clones, Naruto explained. They're not just duplicates, they're fully functional copies with all my abilities. If I can create enough of them and distribute them to critical locations, you could provide initial response capability at multiple sites simultaneously, Tommy realized, immediately grasping the tactical advantage. But wouldn't creating that many clones severely drain your chakra? Yes, Naruto admitted, but I have more chakra reserves than most ninjas, thanks to my unique background. And if the situation is as critical as it seems, the risk is justified. Jen studied him with newfound respect. The chronometric readings I'm getting from you are unlike anything in our records. Your energy signature contains temporal resilience factors that might actually allow your duplicates to maintain coherence across significant distances, despite the dimensional instabilities. In English, Kira requested dryly, his clones should remain stable even in areas where reality itself is fluctuating, Jen clarified. A significant tactical advantage. It's worth trying, Tommy decided. But we'll need a secure location with access to the Morphin grid to enhance the clones' stability and communication capabilities. The old command center site, Kimberly suggested. Even destroyed, it maintains the strongest connection to the grid on Earth. Perfect, Tommy agreed. Jen, can your time force technology get us there quickly? She nodded, already programming coordinates into her temporal transporter. I can establish a short-range temporal displacement field. It won't be comfortable, but it will get us there instantly. As they prepared for temporal transport, Naruto created one final shadow clone to remain at the academy and monitor the situation. The clone nodded in understanding before disappearing back up the tunnel toward the surface. Everyone ready? Jen asked, activating her device. Temporal displacement in 3, 2, 1. Reality blurred around them as they were enveloped in a field of chronometric energy. For a brief, disorienting moment, Naruto experienced the strange sensation of existing everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Then, with a flash of blue-white light, they rematerialized atop a desert mountain overlooking a vast landscape. Naruto immediately recognized the altered state of his chakra, similar to what he'd felt at Tommy's command center but magnified exponentially. The place resonated with ancient power, the very rocks beneath their feet seeming to pulse with energy that reached out to him like a living thing. Welcome to the original command center site, Tommy said, gesturing to what appeared to be ruins of a once impressive structure. The birthplace of Earth's Power Rangers. It's alive, Naruto observed, sensing the energy currents with his enhanced perception. The Morphin grid flows more strongly here than anywhere I've encountered in your world. Zordon chose this location for precisely that reason, Kimberly explained, a hint of reverence in her voice. It sits atop a direct conduit to the grid itself. Which makes it perfect for what we need to do, Tommy added, leading them toward a particular section of the ruins where a circular platform remained largely intact. This was the viewing globe chamber, the heart of the command center's connection to the Morphin grid. Naruto stepped onto the platform, immediately feeling the energy surging through him. It was not unlike the natural energy he gathered for Sage Mode, but more structured, more purposeful. As if it had been deliberately shaped by an intelligent force over millennia. I can work with this, he confirmed, beginning the hand signs for his most advanced shadow clone technique. But I'll need to modify the jutsu to incorporate the Morphin energy. It's not something I've attempted before. What can we do to help? Kimberly asked, stepping forward. Form a perimeter around me, Naruto instructed. Your connection to the Morphin grid will help stabilize the energy flow. And, he hesitated briefly, I might need you to catch me when this is done. It's going to take nearly everything I've got. The Rangers positioned themselves at cardinal points around Naruto, instinctively aligning with the energy flows of the ancient site. Jen activated additional temporal stabilizers from her equipment, creating a field that would protect the process from potential timeline fluctuations. Ready when you are, Tommy confirmed. Naruto closed his eyes, gathering his chakra while simultaneously opening himself to the Morphin grid's energy. The dual power sources intertwined within him, creating patterns he'd never experienced before. It was exhilarating and terrifying simultaneously, like standing at the center of a hurricane while holding lightning in his bare hands. Multi-dimensional shadow clone technique. The jutsu exploded outward from Naruto in a wave of combined chakra and Morphin energy. Unlike his standard shadow clone technique, which typically created duplicates in his immediate vicinity, this modified version sent the clones directly to their targeted locations across the globe. 100, 200, 500. The numbers continued to climb as Naruto channeled more power into the technique, his body glowing with the strain of maintaining the complex energy matrix. Through his connection to the clones, he caught glimpses of their destinations, ranger bases and battle sites worldwide where dimensional incursions were occurring or imminent. Each clone arrived with full awareness of its purpose and the tactical situation it faced. 700, 800. The strain was becoming nearly unbearable, but Naruto pushed forward, determined to reach his target. The rangers around him maintained their positions, their own energies flowing into the matrix to stabilize the increasingly complex network. Almost there, Naruto managed gritted teeth as the count approached 1000. With a final surge of effort, he completed the technique, 1000 shadow clones distributed globally, each infused with both chakra and RPH in energy to enhance their durability and effectiveness. As the last clone materialized at its designated location, Naruto's knees buckled. Kimberly and Tommy moved instantly to catch him before he could collapse completely, supporting him as the glow of energy gradually faded from his exhausted form. Did it work? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Perfectly, Jen confirmed, checking her scanner. I'm receiving temporal signatures from all targeted locations. Your clones are in position and operational. Billy, Tommy activated his communicator. Are you receiving the new energy signatures? Affirmative. The Blue Ranger replied, obvious amazement in his voice. We're tracking approximately 1000 new chakra signatures at precisely the locations we identified as vulnerable. The tactical advantage this provides is unprecedented. Coordinate with the clones directly, Naruto instructed, gradually recovering his strength. They can communicate with each other and me instantaneously when needed. This changes everything, Kimberly realized. We now have first response capability at every potential incursion site. It's a stopgap measure, Naruto cautioned, accepting a water bottle from Kira with a grateful nod. The clones are powerful, but not invincible, and maintaining this many simultaneously will limit what I personally can do. It buys us time, Tommy acknowledged. Time we desperately need to understand exactly what we're facing and how to stop it. Speaking of which, Jen interjected, her expression serious, the temporal fluctuations are continuing to intensify. Whatever this convergence is planning, it's accelerating. Before they could discuss further, Naruto suddenly stiffened, his eyes widening as information flooded his consciousness. One of my clones just dispelled, the one at Silver Hills. What happened? Tommy asked urgently. A new type of portal opened, different from the others. Something came through. Naruto's voice trailed off as he processed the clone's final memories. Someone, not something. A human woman with pink hair and incredible strength. She demolished several of the crystal creatures before the portal closed behind her. Quote, pink hair? Hira questioned. Another ranger. No, Naruto said, hope flaring within him for the first time since arriving in this dimension. That was Sakura Haruno, my teammate from Konoha. One of the strongest kunoichi in the ninja world. She crossed over, Kimberly asked, understanding the significance immediately. Intentionally, it seems, Naruto confirmed. The clone's last memory shows her demanding information about my whereabouts before the crystalline forces overwhelmed the area. If she crossed over deliberately, Tommy reasoned, that means your people have gained some understanding of what's happening, enough to attempt interdimensional travel. And if Sakura's here, Naruto continued, renewed determination in his voice, we need to find her before the convergence does. She might have critical information about what's happening on my side of the dimensional barrier. I'll contact the Time Force Rangers in Silver Hills, Jen offered. Already activating her communicator. They can secure the area and locate your friend. No need, Naruto replied with a slight smile. My clones in the vicinity will have already converged on her location. She'll recognize them instantly. His expression turned more serious. But we should still head to Silver Hills as soon as possible. If Sakura managed to cross over, others might follow, or worse. The convergence might exploit the pathway she used. Agreed, Tommy nodded. Jen, can your temporal transporter get us to Silver Hills? Not directly, she admitted. The device needs time to recharge after a jump of the magnitude we just completed. But I can get us to the Lightspeed Aquabase in Mariner Bay. It's considerably closer than our current location, and from there we can use conventional transportation. Do it, Tommy decided. Billy, coordinate with the other ranger teams. Have them maintain defensive positions at all incursion sites. We're heading to Silver Hills to investigate a potential ally from Naruto's dimension. Understood, Billy acknowledged. Be careful. Our sensors indicate the dimensional barriers are becoming increasingly unstable. Each crossing weakens them further. As Jen prepared her temporal transporter for another jump, Naruto reached out through his network of shadow clones, sending specific instructions to those in and around Silver Hills. Find Sakura. Protect her. Gather any information she might have about the situation in the ninja world. The knowledge that his teammate had found a way to cross dimensions filled him with both hope and concern. Hope that a solution might be within reach, concern for what might have driven Sakura to take such a desperate measure. In all the years he'd known her, she had never been on to act rashly or without thorough preparation. Whatever had happened in Konoha since his disappearance, it must have been serious indeed. Sakura Haruno had experienced many disorienting moments in her career as a kunoichi. But nothing quite compared to interdimensional travel without a proper anchor. The experimental technique developed by combining Yamanaka clan mind transfer principles with Nara shadow manipulation and her own precise chakra control had worked, technically. She had successfully crossed the dimensional barrier. What the technique hadn't accounted for was the exact low cation of her arrival or the hostiles waiting on the other side. I really should have listened to Shikamaru about the landing coordinates, she muttered to herself as she drove her chakra-enhanced fist into another crystalline creature, shattering it into fragments that dissolved into purple light. She had materialized in what appeared to be an urban park, surrounded by structures unlike anything in the 5 great nations. Tall glass buildings reached toward the sky, strange mechanical vehicles moved along paved roads, and the air itself tasted of unfamiliar chemicals and energy. Most immediately concerning, however, were the dozens of stone-like creatures that had converged on her arrival point, as if they had been waiting for a dimensional breach. Their physical composition reminded of the White Zetsu from the 4th Great Ninja War, but with an alien, crystalline quality that defied conventional analysis. Where is Naruto Uzumaki? She demanded of the creatures as she smashed another into dust with a precisely calculated blow. I know he's in this dimension. The creatures offered no response beyond their relentless attacks. Unlike most opponents Sakura had faced, these showed no signs of pain, fatigue, or self-preservation instinct. They simply advanced, absorbing tremendous damage before finally succumbing to her monstrous strength. She had been fighting for nearly 10 minutes, conserving her chakra where possible, knowing she would need reserves to return home, when something unexpected happened. A familiar voice called out from beyond the ring of creatures surrounding her. "Sakura-chan, over here." Quote. Her head snapped toward the sound, hope and disbelief warring within her. Naruto. Through a gap in the enemy ranks, she glimpsed a flash of blonde hair and orange clothing. Without hesitation, she channeled chakra to her legs and leapt over the creatures, landing beside what appeared to be Naruto Uzumaki, or rather, 3 identical copies of him. Shadow clones, she realized immediately. Relief and disappointment mingling, so the real you is elsewhere. About 50 miles from here, the primary clone confirmed. But he's on his way. We need to get you to safety before more of these things arrive. Sakura nodded, falling into step beside the clones as they led her away from the battle site. Years of working alongside Naruto had made coordinating with his shadow clones second nature to her. The dimensional passage was successful then, she noted as they navigated through unfamiliar urban terrain. Kakashi-sensei and Shikamaru theorized you'd been pulled into another reality. But we couldn't be certain until the Yamanaka clan detected traces of your chakra signature through the rifts that started appearing. Rifts are opening in our world too? The clone asked, concern evident. Yes, beginning approximately 3 days after your disappearance. Small at first, but growing larger and more stable. Strange creatures began emerging, similar to those I just fought, but less evolved. Sakura's expression darkened. They've attacked several villages already. Conventional weapons and most jutsu have limited effect. How did you find a way to cross over? Another clone asked as they entered what appeared to be an abandoned building, securing the perimeter with practiced efficiency. Collaborative effort, Sakura explained, taking the opportunity to check her equipment and assess her chakra reserves. Ino's clan provided the mental projection technique, Shikamaru's shadow binding created the physical anchor, and I supplied the precise chakra control needed to maintain coherence during the transition. It's not perfect. I can only remain in this dimension for approximately 12 hours before the technique collapses. 12 hours should be enough. The clone assured her. The real Naruto is working with people native to this dimension. They call themselves Power Rangers. They have experience with interdimensional traits and energy manipulation similar to chakra. Power Rangers. Sakura repeated, the term unfamiliar. Are they this world's version of shinobi? Not exactly, the clone explained. They use a power source called the Morphin grid, something like a structured version of natural energy that can be channeled through special devices to enhance their physical capabilities and manifest weapons or armor. Interesting, Sakura murmured, her analytical mind already considering the implications. Could this Morphin grid be related to the Sage of Six Paths, powers? The timing of these dimensional incursions corresponds with the discovery of ancient texts in the Uzumaki clan ruins, texts that mention the grid of all creation. The clones exchanged significant looks. The real me needs to hear this directly. He's learned things on this side that might connect to what you've discovered. How long until he arrives? Sakura asked, moving to a window to survey their surroundings. The strange city stretched before her, both familiar in its urban layout and utterly alien in its details. Soon, the primary clone assured her. In the meantime, we should. Its words cut off abruptly as a LL3 clones simultaneously stiffened, their expressions shifting to alert focus. Change of plans, the primary clone announced. More rifts are opening across the city. The convergence forces are converging on this location. They must have detected your dimensional signature. The convergence, Sakura questioned. The entity behind these attacks, the clone explained hurriedly. They're manipulating the barriers between dimensions for some larger purpose, something about reuniting worlds that were artificially separated. This information aligned with fragments of what Konoha's research had pieced together from the ancient texts, but Sakura had no time to pursue the connection as the building around them trembled violently. We need to move, she decided, gathering her equipment. Where's the nearest defensible position? 3 blocks east, a structure called the Clock Tower. It housed the Time Force Rangers' base of operations and still contains technology that might help shield your dimensional signature. Sakura nodded, falling into mission mode with practiced ease. Lead the way. As they exited the building through a rear entrance, the sky above Silver Hills dark and unnaturally, swirling clouds forming a vortex similar to what had appeared at the Wind Ninja Academy. Lightning crackled between the clouds and the ground, striking in patterns that seemed deliberately placed to encircle their position. "They're attempting to trap us," one clone observed as they sprinted through back alleys toward their destination. "Cutting off escape routes. Let them try," Sakura replied with the confidence of someone who had faced worse odds during the Fourth Great Ninja War. "I didn't spend 3 years training under Tsunade to be stopped by some interdimensional rocks." The clock tower came into view ahead, an imposing structure that dominated this section of the city skyline. As they approached, however, a new rift opened directly in their path, disgorging a figure unlike the standard crystalline creatures. This new arrival stood nearly 7 feet tall, its body a perfect fusion of crystal and what appeared to be human anatomy. Most disturbingly, it wore a corrupted version of an Anbu mask from Konoha, the stylized animal features twisted into something nightmarish. "Haruno Sakura," it addressed her directly, its voice carrying echoes of someone she might once have known. "The Convergence welcomes your contribution to the reunification." "I don't know who or what you are," Sakura responded, chakra already flowing to her fists, "but if you're responsible for Naruto's disappearance or the attacks on our villages, you're about to experience firsthand why they call me the Second Tsunade." The creature tilted its head, the gesture unnervingly human despite its alien composition. "Your friend was not taken, he was called. As the Sage of Rangers, his presence is essential to the Convergence. As is yours, Strength of 100. This reference to her ultimate technique, the same seal that adorned her forehead, was unsettling. Whatever this Convergence was, it possessed detailed knowledge of her world and its abilities. "I'm not contributing to anything except your immediate destruction," Sakura declared, charging forward with chakra-enhanced speed. The Naruto clones flanked her, each preparing Rasengan variants to complement her attack. The Anbu masked creature made no move to dodge, instead raising one crystalline hand in a familiar hand sign. Earth-style Terra Shield. A wall of stone erupted from the pavement, interposed between Sakura and her target. Rather than avoiding the obstacle, she smiled grimly and drove her fist directly into it, her perfect chakra control focusing maximum destructive force at the point of impact. The shield shattered explosively, fragments spraying outward with lethal velocity. The creature, however, had already moved, appearing behind her with speed that rivaled Gai Sensei without his weights. "Your techniques are known to us," it stated calmly. "All jutsus of your world have counterparts in the Morphin grid. All can be anticipated and countered." One Naruto clone intervened, a Wii ND-style Rasengan aimed at the creature's midsection. The attack connected, creating a spiraling vortex that should have shredded its target at the cellular level. Instead, the creature absorbed the technique, its crystalline body glowing briefly as it processed and redirected the energy. "Even the sage's techniques are merely expressions of the unified power we serve." "Maybe so," Sakura acknowledged, already adjusting her strategy. "But there's one thing your convergence calculations can't account for." "What would that be?" the creature asked, genuine curiosity in its distorted voice. Sakura smiled dangerously, the diamond seal on her forehead beginning to glow as patterns spread across her skin. "Human unpredictability. Creation rebirth. Strength of 100 technique." The full power of her stored chakra exploded outward, enhancing her already formidable abilities exponentially. Moving faster than the eye could track, she appeared before the creature, her chakra-infused fist connecting with its center mass before it could react. The impact created a shockwave that shattered windows for several blocks in all directions. The creature's crystalline body cracked from the point of impact outward, fissures spreading across its entire form as it was launched backward through multiple buildings. "That," Sakura stated with satisfaction, "is how we deal with threats in Konoha." The Naruto clone stared at her with expressions that mixed admiration and mild terror, a reaction she was well accustomed to from their creator. "Remind me never to make you angry," one muttered, sounding exactly like the real Naruto. "Too late for that," Sakura replied with a hint of a smile. Now, Let's reach that clock tower before. She stopped mid-sentence as the ground beneath them trembled violently. From the direction where she had sent the creature flying, a pulse of purple energy erupted skyward, connecting with the vortex above. The column of light expanded outward, creating a dome of energy that encapsulated several city blocks, including their current position. That's not good, a clone observed unnecessarily. Within the energy dome, reality itself began to warp. Buildings flickered between their current form and what appeared to be ninja architecture from their home dimension. The very air shimmered with dimensional instability, creating a hybrid environment that belonged fully to neither world. They're merging the dimensions locally, Sakura realized, her medical training allowing her to recognize the pattern despite its unprecedented nature. Creating a pocket of space-time where both realities exist simultaneously. Which means they can bring through reinforcements without requiring a stable portal, the primary clone concluded grimly. We need to disrupt whatever's generating this effect. Sakura nodded, already scanning for the source of the energy dome. There, she pointed to where multiple beams of light converged at the center of the affected area. That has to be the focal point. Before they could formulate a plan to reach it, the air rippled around them as more than a dozen figures materialized within the dome, some bearing corrupted ninja village symbols. Others wearing twisted versions of what Sakura assumed were ranger uniforms from this world. Haruno Sakura, spoke a new voice, feminine but with metallic undertones that suggested partial mechanization. A figure stepped forward from the newly arrived group, wearing what appeared to be a corrupted pink and white uniform with a helmet design that might once have been reminiscent of a pterodactyl. Your arrival was anticipated. Your participation is required. I don't take orders from interdimensional fashion disasters, Sakura replied coolly, assessing her tactical options. With her strength of 100 technique active, she could likely defeat many of these opponents individually, but their sheer numbers presented a challenge even for her enhanced abilities. The Naruto clones moved to defensive positions around her, each preparing techniques suited to the confined urban environment. The real Naruto will have sensed this disturbance, one assured her. Help is coming. We don't require your cooperation, the corrupted Pink Ranger stated, raising what appeared to be a modified version of a bow. Merely your presence. The reunion of the six aspect. TS requires representatives from both dimensions. Six aspects. Sakura questioned, the term tickling something in her memory, something from the ancient texts discovered in the Uzumaki ruins. The fundamental energies that comprise all existence, another corrupted figure explained, this one bearing a twisted version of a stone village headband. In your dimension, they manifest as chakra natures. In this one, as aspects of the Morphin grid. Fire, water, earth, lightning, wind, and yin-yang, Sakura recited from memory. The basic and advanced chakra natures. Red, blue, yellow, pink, black, and white in the Morphin spectrum. The corrupted Pink Ranger confirmed. Different expressions of the same fundamental forces, forces that were never meant to be separated. Despite the dire circumstances, Sakura found herself intellectually intrigued by these revelations. The parallels between chakra natures and these, Morphin, energies suggested a common origin that aligned with the Fragum. Enteri historical records Konoha had recovered. However, her scientific curiosity was secondary to the immediate tactical situation, which was rapidly deteriorating as more corrupted figures materialized within the energy dome. Whatever philosophical debate you're hoping for will have to wait, Sakura informed them, chakra gathering at her fists once more. I have a friend to find and a way home to secure. The corrupted Pink Ranger raised her bow, energy gathering at its tip. The choice is not yours to make. The convergence proceeds regardless of individual will. Before she could release her attack, a massive blast of energy struck from outside the dome, a concentrated beam of white light that momentarily disrupted the energy field surrounding them. Through the resulting distortion aim 5 figures in multicolored uniforms, their synchronized arrival suggesting a well-practiced team. Time Force Rangers, one of Naruto's clones identified them. This dimension's defenders. Newcomers immediately engaged the corrupted forces, their coordinated attacks creating openings in the enemy formation. The Red Ranger, apparently the team leader, fought his way to Sakura's position. Dr. Haruno. He addressed her, somehow knowing her title. Jen Scotts sent us. We need to get you out of this containment field before it fully stabilizes. Not without disrupting the source, Sakura insisted, gesturing toward the energy convergence point. If we leave that intact, they'll just expand the effect. The Red Ranger nodded, accepting her assessment. Wesley Collins, Time Force Red. My team can provide cover while you and the duplicates target the focal point. Sakura was impressed by his immediate grasp of the tactical situation and willingness to incorporate her expertise into the plan. Agreed. We'll need approximately 3 minutes to reach the convergence point and disrupt the energy pattern. You'll have it, Wes assured her, signaling his team to adjust their formation accordingly. With the Time Force Rangers engaging the primary corruption forces, Sakura and the Naruto clones broke away, moving rapidly toward the center of the dimensional merger effect. As they approached, Sakura analyzed the energy patterns with the precision that had made her one of the most accomplished medical ninjas of her generation. It's a variation of space-time ninjutsu, she realized aloud, combined with something similar to the barrier techniques used to contain tailed beasts. But there's another element, something from this dimension that's stabilizing the merger. The Morphin grid, one clone suggested. It must be providing the structural framework that allows the dimensions to overlap without completely collapsing. Sakura nodded, the pieces falling into place. Then we need to disrupt both components simultaneously. Your Rasengan variants can address the chakra-based elements while I target the physical focal point. The plan formulated, they launch. Their coordinated attack as they reached the center of the effect. 3 Naruto clones created specialized Rasengan variants, one wind-based, one infused with natural energy, and one incorporating the Nine Tails chakra. Simultaneously, Sakura channeled the full power of her strength of 100 technique into a single, perfectly calculated strike at the crystalline structure generating the energy field. The combined attack created a cascade failure within the dimensional merger apparatus. Energy rebounded through the system, causing the crystalline components to vibrate at increasing frequencies until they shattered explosively. The dome of energy surrounding them flickered and destabilized, reality reasserting itself as the artificial merger collapsed. The corrupted forces, cut off from their power source, immediately began to retreat through rapidly closing dimensional tiers. The Time Force Rangers pressed their advantage, preventing several from escaping while securing the area against further incursions. As the last traces of the dimensional merger dissipated, Sakura allowed her strength of 100 technique to deactivate, conserving her remaining chakra. The black patterns receded from her skin, leaving only the diamond seal on her forehead as evidence of her extraordinary ability. Impressive technique, Wes commented as he approached, removing his helmet to rev. A handsome face with kind eyes that reminded her somewhat of Naruto. Time Force has encountered many forms of energy manipulation, but nothing quite like what you just demonstrated. Medical ninjutsu adapted for combat applications. Sakura explained modestly. In my world, I'm primarily a healer, though circumstances often require more direct approaches. We received word that you're a friend of Naruto Uzumaki. Wes continued. He and several of our colleagues are en route to this location now. How long until they arrive? Sakura asked, glancing at the Naruto clones who had survived the battle. 20 minutes by conventional transportation, Wes replied. They were unable to use temporal displacement due to the current instabilities in the time stream. That should be sufficient, Sakura nodded. I have information from my world that may be critical to understanding what's happening, but I'd prefer to share it only once, with Naruto present. Of course, Wes agreed. In the meantime, we should move to a more secure location. That energy discharge likely attracted attention, both from authorities and potentially from additional convergence forces. As they prepared to depart, Sakura took a moment to truly absorb her surroundings, this alien world with its unfamiliar technology and energy systems. Despite the obvious differences, she found herself noting similarities as well. The dedication of its defenders, the structured approach to power and responsibility, the existence of teams not unlike the ninja squads of her world. Perhaps the connections between dimensions ran deeper than anyone had realized. If so, understanding those connections might be the key to preventing whatever catastrophe the convergence was attempting to engineer. With that sobering thought, she followed the Rangers toward what they called the clock tower, ready to reunite with her teammate and share what Konoha had discovered about their world's intertwined histories. The reunion between Naruto and Sakura, when it finally occurred in the secured conference room of the clock tower, was both emotional and professional, a balance characteristic of shinobi who understood that personal feelings must sometimes be subordinated to mission requirements. "You look terrible," were Sakura's first words as Naruto entered, though her smile belied the criticism. "Dimensional travel doesn't agree with you," says the woman who punched her way through an interdimensional barrier, he retorted with a grin, embracing his teammate briefly before stepping back to introduce his companions. "Sakura Haruno, meet Tommy Oliver, Kimberly Hart, Kira Ford, and Jen Scotts, Rangers from different teams who've been helping me understand this world and what's happening between our dimensions." Sakura acknowledged each with a respectful nod, her analytical gaze taking in details about their stances, equipment, and energy signatures. "Your assistance to Naruto is appreciated. He has a remarkable talent for finding trouble in any dimension." "Hey," Naruto protested good-naturedly, "am I wrong?" Sakura challenged with raised eyebrows. Tommy smiled slightly at the familiar dynamic that reminded him of his own long-standing relationships with fellow Rangers. "Naruto has been invaluable in helping us understand the nature of the threat we're facing. His abilities have already saved countless lives." "That sounds like him," Sakura acknowledged, her expression softening momentarily before returning to professional focus. "I have information from Konoha that may help contextualize what's happening." She removed a scroll from her equipment pouch and unrolled it on the conference table, revealing complex diagrams and ancient text that Naruto immediately recognized as similar to the Uzumaki clan's sealing script. 3 days after your disappearance, archaeological teams excavating the ruins of Uzushiogakure discovered a sealed chamber beneath the main temple, Sakura explained. Inside was an archive of texts predating the founding of the hidden villages, some possibly as old as the Sage of Six Paths himself. "What did they say?" Naruto asked, leaning forward to examine the intricate diagrams. "They describe a time before the separation of worlds," Sakura continued, pointing to specific sections of text. "According to these records, what we know as the Nja world and what exists here were once a single reality, governed by unified energy that could manifest in multiple forms. The Morphin grid and chakra were originally one system," Tommy concluded. The revelation aligning with what they had learned from Zordon's records. "Precisely," Sakura confirmed. "The texts refer to the grid of all creation, from which all energy manipulation derived. His grid was maintained by 2 groups of guardians, the ancestors of the Sage of Six Paths and beings called the Morphin Masters. Zordon's predecessors," Kimberly noted, exchanging significant looks with Tommy. "For thousands of years, these guardians worked in harmony," Sakura continued, "until a fundamental disagreement arose about humanity's relationship with this power. One faction believed that energy manipulation should be internalized, become part of human biology itself through what we now call the chakra network. The other maintained that power should remain external, accessed through devices and technology that could be granted or revoked based on worthiness. The philosophical basis for the Ranger system versus ninjutsu," Jen observed thoughtfully. "External versus internal power sources. The disagreement escalated into conflict," Sakura confirmed. "And in the final battle between the leaders of each faction, the grid itself was damaged. Reality fractured along the lines of the philosophical divide, creating separate dimensions that reflected each faction's vision for humanity's relationship with power. That's why the energy systems are similar but distinct," Naruto realized. "They're different expressions of the same fundamental force. And it explains why certain individuals from each dimension show particular compatibility with the other's energy system," Tommy added, looking meaningfully at Naruto. "Those who, genetically or spiritually, maintain stronger connections to the original unified grid. Like the Uzumaki clan," Naruto concluded, pieces falling into place. "Known for their exceptional life force and sealing techniques, abilities that bridge the gap between internal and external power manipulation. The text specifically mentioned the Uzumaki as keepers of the boundary." Sakura confirmed, tasked with maintaining the separation between dimensions after the sundering. "Their sealing techniques were designed not just for containing tailed beasts, but for reinforcing the walls between realities. Which is why I was pulled through when the first rift appeared, Naruto reasoned. As an Uzumaki descendant with particularly strong life force and unique chakra, I represented a natural bridge between worlds. And why your shadow clone technique works so effectively with Morphin energy, Kira added. You're creating physical duplicates that can channel both energy types simultaneously. But what about this convergence? Kimberly asked, returning to the immediate threat. If they know this history, what are they trying to accomplish by destabilizing the dimensional barriers? Sakura's expression grew more somber. The texts contain warnings about a third faction that opposed both philosophies, one that believed power should be centralized under a single consciousness that would guide all reality according to its vision. Like Kagaya in our world, Naruto noted grimly, are Zordon's enemy Dark Spectre in this one? The texts call this entity the Morpheus, a being that existed before the separation and has worked through proxies in both dimensions to orchestrate its return, Sakura explained. The warnings ascribe it as patient beyond human comprehension, willing to wait millennia for the proper alignment of forces. And now it's using the prophesied Sage of Rangers to facilitate its return, Tommy concluded. The pieces of the puzzle finally forming a coherent picture. Not just the Sage, Jen interjected, consulting her temporal scanner. The chronometric readings suggest a convergence of 6 specific power signatures, one for each aspect of the original grid. The 6 paths, Naruto and Sakura said simultaneously, exchanging knowing looks. In our world, the Sage of 6 paths could manifest 6 distinct forms of chakra. Sakura explained for the Ranger's benefit. These correspond to what we now call the 5 basic nature transformations plus yin-yang release. And in Ranger terminology, they align with the 6 primary colors of the Morphin grid, Tommy added. Red, blue, yellow, pink, black, and white-green. The corrupted pink Ranger mentioned, representatives from both dimensions being required for the reunion of the 6 aspects, Sakura recalled, a new concern entering her voice. They weren't just trying to capture me, they were identifying me as one of these representatives. Which means they've selected specific individuals from both worlds to serve as focal points for this convergence, Jen theorized, her time force training allowing her to quickly grasp the implications. Individuals with particularly strong connections to each aspect of the original grid. All eyes turned to Naruto, who had been uncharacteristically quiet as he processed these revelations. They called me the Sage of Rangers, he finally said. Because I can channel all 6 aspects in both chakra and Morphin energy. Making you the linchpin of whatever ritual or process they're attempting to complete. Tommy concluded grimly, but they would still need the other 5 representatives, Kira pointed out. One for each remaining aspect. And at least one of them is Sakura, Kimberly noted. Looking at the medical ninja with newfound understanding. Your strength of 100 technique, it must align with one of the 6 aspects particularly strongly. Earth nature, Sakura confirmed. My primary chakra affinity has always been Earth, which I refined into the precise chakra control needed for medical ninjutsu and enhanced strength techniques. Which would correspond to the yellow aspect of the Morphin grid, Tommy explained, looking at Kira. Representing endurance, stability, and heart, characteristics consistently associated with Yellow Rangers across different teams. So they're collecting people who embody each aspect from both dimensions, Naruto summarized, his tactical mind already working through potential countermeasures. Which means we need to identify who else they might target and protect them before the convergence can complete its plan. I can use Time Force's predictive algorithms to analyze energy signatures across both dimensions, Jen offered. If we input what we know about the 6 aspects and their manifestations in both worlds, we might be able to identify potential targets. And I can communicate this information back to Konoha when I return, Sakura added. Kakashi-sensei and Shikamaru can coordinate protective measures for anyone identified in our world. How much longer can you remain in this dimension? Tommy asked her. Sakura checked the specific seals inscribed on her arms that maintained her interdimensional presence. Approximately 8 hours before the technique destabilizes. The transition back should be automatic, returning me to the exact location from which I departed, which gives us limited time to formulate a comprehensive plan, Naruto noted, his expression resolute. But first, we need to Understand exactly what the Convergence intends to do with these representatives once they're gathered. The ancient texts aren't specific, Sakura admitted. They refer only to the Great Reunion. That would restore what was sundered, presumably the merging of dimensions and the unification of chakra and the Morphin grid under the Morpheus's control. That kind of merger would be catastrophic for both worlds, Tommy warned. Our realities have evolved separately for thousands of years. The sudden recombination of physical laws and energy systems would likely result in widespread destruction and countless deaths. Not to mention placing all power under the control of an entity that both the Sage of Six Paths and the original Morphin Masters considered dangerous enough to literally break reality to contain, Kimberly added. Then our priorities are clear, Naruto decided, assuming the natural leadership role that had defined his growth since the Fourth Great Ninja War. First, we identify potential representatives of the six aspects in both dimensions and ensure their protection. Second, we develop countermeasures against the dimensional merging process. Third, we locate the Convergence's base of operations and take the fight directly to them. Ambitious, Jen observed with a hint of approval. But necessarily so, given what we're facing. We'll need to expand our coalition, Tommy added thoughtfully. This threat transcends individual ranger teams or hidden villages. We need a unified response from both dimensions. I can help with that, Sakura offered. When I return to Konoha, I'll propose a joint shinobi force drawing from all 5 great nations, similar to the allied shinobi forces formed during the war. And I'll coordinate with all active and reserve ranger teams globally, Tommy agreed. Many have already responded to the initial incursions, but they need to understand the full scope of what we're facing. As they continued strategizing, Naruto found himself struck by the parallels between this crisis and previous threats he had faced. From Pain's assault on Konoha to Madara and Kagaya during the Fourth Great Ninja War, he had repeatedly confronted enemies who sought to reshape reality according to their vision. Each time, victory had come not through his power alone, but through cooperation, understanding, and the unbreakable bonds formed with allies. Now, facing a threat that spanned dimensions, those same principles would be their greatest strength. There's something else we should consider, he said, interrupting a technical discussion between Jen and Sakura about interdimensional energy mapping. The Convergence seems to be following a prophecy or predetermined plan involving these 6 representatives. What if we introduce an element they couldn't have anticipated? What did you have in mind? Tommy asked, recognizing the spark of inspiration in Naruto's eyes. A 7th power, Naruto suggested. Something outside their 6-aspect paradigm. In my world, beyond the 6 paths, there exists what some call the Zero Tails, a form of dark chakra created from the negative emotions of humanity. It exists outside the normal chakra classification system. And in Ranger history, there have been powers that exist beyond the standard Morphin grid spectrum, Tommy realized, following Naruto's reasoning. The Phantom Ranger, the Titanium Ranger. Certain extraterrestrial powers that connect to the grid differently. If their ritual requires perfect alignment of 6 specific aspects, Kira reasoned, introducing a 7th unexpected element could disrupt the entire process. Exactly, Naruto confirmed. We don't just defend and react, we introduce chaos into their ordered system. That's actually brilliant, Sakura acknowledged with mild surprise. Since when did you become the strategic thinker? I've picked up a few things over the years, Naruto replied with a hint of his old mischievous grin. Besides, who better to introduce unpredictable chaos than the most unpredictable ninja? As the planning continued, energy alarms suddenly blared throughout the clock tower. Wes rushed into the conference room, his expression urgent. Multiple dimensional breaches detected, he reported. Not just in Silver Hills. Global coordinates indicate simultaneous incursions at every major city with Ranger history. Angel Grove, Mariner Bay, Turtle Cove, Reefside, Ocean Bluff. It's starting, Jen realized, checking her temporal scanner. The timeline convergence points are accelerating toward a single nexus event. They're creating distractions, Tommy concluded grimly, forcing us to split our resources while they proceed with their main objective. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, accessing the network of shadow clones he had distributed globally. Through their shared consciousness, he received simultaneous updates from dozens of locations, all reporting similar patterns of increasingly Coordinated attacks by convergence forces. My clones are engaging at multiple sites, he confirmed. But they're reporting something new. The corrupted forces are specifically targeting locations with connections to the 6 aspects. In Angel Grove, they're focusing on the original command center ruins. In Mariner Bay, the Aquabase power core. Nodes of Morphin energy, Tommy explained. Places where the grid manifests particularly strongly in specific aspects. We need to split up, Kimberly decided, the practical necessity overriding the tactical disadvantage. Cover as many critical low cations as possible while maintaining a core team to address the convergence's primary objective, whatever that turns out to be. Agreed, Tommy nodded. Jen, you and Wes coordinate the Time Force response here in Silver Hills. Kira, return to Reefside and rally the Dino Thunder team. Your gem's unique properties might be particularly effective against these hybrid threats. What about us? Kimberly asked, gesturing to herself. Naruto and Sakura, the 3 of us will head to Angel Grove, Tommy decided. The original command center represents the most significant concentration of all 6 Morphin aspects on Earth. If the convergence is building toward a dimensional merger ritual, that's the most likely focal point. I'll need to return to my dimension before then, Sakura reminded them, checking her time-limited seals. But I can help until the transport technique activates. Then we move immediately, Tommy concluded. Rangers, we're facing a threat unlike any we've encountered before, one that spans dimensions and threatens the very fabric of reality. But remember that we've overcome impossible odds before, by standing together and never giving up. That sounds familiar, Sakura commented to Naruto with a small smile. Some things are universal, I guess, he replied, thinking of his own oft-repeated ninja way. No matter what dimension you're in, hope and determination remain the most powerful forces of all. As the group prepared to depart for their respective assignments, Naruto took a moment to center himself, reaching out through his clone network to monitor the escalating situation worldwide. Through their shared consciousness, he could feel the strain on the dimensional barriers intensifying, reality itself becoming increasingly malleable as the convergence's plan progressed. Whatever was coming would test them all to their limits and beyond. But looking at the determined faces around him, Rangers and Ninja united against a common threat, he felt a familiar surge of confidence that had carried him through his darkest hours. Different worlds, different powers, but the same unbreakable spirit. Together, they would face whatever the convergence had planned, and they would prevail. They had to. The alternative was unthinkable. Chapter 3 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.